Doing a mic check, y'all. Mic check, y'all. I'm sorry that things have been a little complicated. A little bit out of the loop. I want to make sure that everything is intended as it's supposed to be. Almost there, y'all. Almost there. A little bit more, y'all. A little bit more. A little bit more. All right. Here we go. Well, welcome to the show. It is Friday night. It's 20 minutes after 10. Sorry, y'all. This took so long. But unfortunately, we had some technical issues and things are running off a little later than it should be. Welcome to the show. My name is Mo Delgado. This is the new Norm 2.0, brought to you every Friday at 10 p.m. for right now. From your neighborhood, everybody who's involved. Let's just say that. Um, a lot of issues to discuss this week. Very important information that's being going on and disseminated. Very important topics that need to be discussed. One extremely important topic that we need and must discuss is the fact that we're facing or potentially can become this generation's world war. Ukraine was recently invaded by Russia, the Russian Federation. Russian Federation chose to move forward on Ukraine, which sits alongside of its borders, and Belarus, under the guise of needing protection to ensure the safety and protection of his Russian citizens. Putin decided to make his move towards Ukraine. And not only at those borders, it seemed to have fully surrounded the Ukraine at all borders. And this pushes America and everyone else in the United Nations and NATO in a really curious procurement situation. Because next to Russia is Belarus. Belarus is right on the top northern part of Ukraine, and next to both of those nations is Poland. In regards to the recent situation that's transpired up in Ukraine, the U.S. has sent some 100,000 troops, some reports saying up to 150,000 troops to Poland to ensure that we have a military presence there. So if Putin continues to cross those lines into Ukraine, causing more of a potential risk to the people of Ukraine and moving further west, that United States will impede and push his forces to face the Russian movement. The hardest disposition that's going on right now is the fact that Russia sits alongside of China and it also sits bordering India. And south, more south to that, please forgive me, you got to drink some water, is North Korea. So earlier today, a special meeting took place at the United Nations with the G7. The G7 is a combination of the major countries of the world that come together to decide policies on how to deal with each other. A lot of it having to do with peacekeeping, and then starvation, things like this, to try to avoid further harshness that's happened in the past where people have been gentrified and things like this. G7 is put together to deal with worldwide effects. Well, the discussion was brought to the table. I think it was sponsored by the country Brazil to assist Ukraine by affording Ukraine United Nations representation. You'll see the UN peacekeepers go into war-torn areas to help support in a neutral situation, help support to help make sure that there's enough medical supervision, medical attention available, making sure there's food sources so people don't starve and what have you, and making sure that some order within this discord happens. Well, the United Nations had made a decision earlier, and the vote was very clear. Those people who voted alongside with the presidents, which is 11 countries, including France, Spain, Gabon, I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. Of course, the United Kingdom, Germany. I think those are a few. But the countries that decided to say neutral, not to vote against per se, there's only one nation, of course, that voted against it, which was the Russian Federation. The representative had talked about how continuously Russia is doing this to defend its people, to protect its people. They even use some of the discussion to suggest that it's an anti-Nazi movement that Russia is trying to use or execute against Ukraine. They said there's a lot of neo-Nazi involvement, a lot of white supremacy, a lot of dangerous behavior seems to be festering within the boundaries of Ukraine. And Putin, who wants to seem as considered, is saying that he's trying to move on Ukraine so this movement or these people don't get a chance to execute whatever ills upon the world that can potentially harm others, including the Russians that live within the Ukraine border. Now, remember, Ukraine itself used to be part of the United Socialist Soviet Republic at one point in time. A lot of those nations that sit on alongside part of it. So Russia still has, or Putin still has this desire to complete and make it as large as it once was in its past, its boundaries. So it's willing to go and take it to the full extent as he once did in the past. So in doing so, he thinks it's going to have power. Here's the critical points that have to be considered. Chernobyl sits in Ukraine. Chernobyl is known to be a designated location that had a nuclear crisis. Chernobyl's power plant right there went and it had a meltdown, a full meltdown, and all kinds of horrible reaction took place from the fallout from the nuclear buildup in that area. Chernobyl is just, it's an unfortunate past in Chernobyl, but there's still a lot of radiation. So because Putin wants to have this opportunity of utilizing this location and whatever it still has as far as uranium and what have you for its benefit to create more nuclear power or nuclear armament, or possibly utilizing whatever Chernobyl once already had linked in for the nation itself to supply power, to be able to master over top of the power grid that's supported by this nuclear base, the nuclear power plant. Chernobyl is dangerous. It sits in a location that can potentially create, if not fester, serious mass destruction. So that's definitely another consideration. Another one, as he's moving through these areas, he looks to be strategically trying to move to ensure that no one has access to the Black Sea. Black Sea means having naval power. Someone can come in with ships coming out of the other regions of the world, like the United States, United Kingdom, or whatever nation that may have navy, and move into that area with aircraft carriers with potential air assaults. Russia, as the rest of the world knows, that our floating bases, these huge aircraft carriers, carry hundreds, if not larger amounts of air threats, which includes high-speed planes as well as helicopters. We're talking about drones, the shooting capacity that they have off the ships themselves, and the armament that each one of these planes has. It's a definite threat to the region. And then to have an access to the Black Sea just means that it could have shooting potential at a closer destination proximity at Moscow. So Moscow and other regions where Putin may be could be easily attacked from the Black Sea. So that's another reason why they try to take over Crimea and the other areas surrounding it. So here's the disposition. When the G7 met earlier, the discussion was about giving United Nations support. 11 members voted yes, one member voted no, three other members voted to stay neutral, that they were not going to get in the decision outside of it. The line has been drawn because of discussion. Because those three members are China, India, and if I'm not mistaken, North Korea. Those members are people who are having a lot of world power within itself. China, being right next to Russia, has the world's largest military presence in the world, has more soldiers, has more tanks and what have you. Do they have the same aerial fleet that we do? I would like to say no. Neither does Russia. However, Russian history or history itself suggests that Russia can have some sort of assault, but we have our allies that are also in the system, which is the number one threat in the air is the Israeli Air Defense Command. I think that's what they're called. Israel is the boss when it comes to the air, and there are allies, and not too far ready and willing to go into battle if necessary. So the other nation is India. The discussion that I saw a little earlier from this company called Gravitas suggests that India doesn't have the financial grounds to be able to defend themselves if Russia wants to make some sort of move towards them with in allegiance to China. Of course, China sits in between Russia and India. You know, like I know, exactly, Marte. India has nuclear weapons. India has always stated that no matter what you say and however it is, we're going to maintain our nuclear presence. India is also known to have some of the world's wealthiest people on the planet. There's one guy who's beyond Jeff Bezos who owns a tower. It's his personal home, in the middle of one of the major regions inside the city in India. So it's not that India doesn't have finances. They have finances and they have a large military. I think the issue with India is the fact that India is very dependent on oil and gas that comes from Russia. And because it's easier for them to get their oil and gas from Russia as it is from their counterparts from the Middle East, which still under all of the issues going on in the East, that may not necessarily transcend. So because all those things, all those factors play a permanent and questionable role, that's something that we need to consider. So this is one discussion. Another hard truth is, like America, India is very dependent on the business that China provides India. A lot of the goods and services that you see through China are manufactured in India. And if it's not back and forth, it's the same way. It's like they're also, there's other nations like Afghanistan or Pakistan that are also in the manufacturing business, and they're supporting our economy here in the United States as well as Canada and the West. They're also supplying a lot of the goods and services back and forth in Asia. So their economy is very dependent on one another. So with all those things considered, they're not going to step into the ring, hypothetically, against the big boy if they're not able to get the things that they need from somewhere else at equal to, if not lesser price. India wants to continue to be considered a significant presence in the world. The Indian government always suggests that they are equal to, if not more, greater, economically, socially, politically, everything. You know, they got their chest out always, of course, like every nation should. But the reality is that there's so many predators in that area of the world that they're always 1 millisecond away from hitting that nuclear detonation. China coming at Russia, Russia coming at China, China coming at India, India coming at North Korea, North Korea shooting against that way to Pakistan, Pakistan to Bangladesh, Bangladesh to India, India back to China, what have you. That part of the world could be in a major shit show with the wrong teetering on one side or the other. Here's the ultimate scope of this thing. The economy itself in Asia will be hurt. The economy in the world will be hurt. those that are involved in the strategies of the economy itself are paying attention. Today, over 30 points has dived. You see the national stock exchange dive. Stocks have basically dropped nearly 30 points overnight from this whole discussion about Ukraine and its movement by Putin. That's just one rigid movement that you see that can potentially fall into something else really soon, even more, because the more this goes on, United Kingdom had already declared the strongest sanctions it possibly can on Russia. The American government has also said the same thing. I think Canada is in discussion right now, even though they're having their own problems going on, about siding with this whole situation. So one of the major the exports that Russia is with gasoline and oil, because of their reserves of dinosaurs in the north and Siberia and what have you. Their reserves are high. They've been funneling a lot of money. There's a lot of oligarchs from these super billionaires created through the oil and gas industry coming from there. Others are things that we already know about. We have vodka, which is just known, but there's a lot of other things. There's also raw minerals that seem to be funneled out of that nation into the other areas that might need it. China, being one of the biggest consumers of the world, are also one of the biggest producers of the world that actually offset. They make more from what they produce than we do. And we're more dependent of China, which means in our dependence of China, we're also dependent of China and India and Russia. The way these things are, they're all interlinked. So it's a sensitive disposition right now, because what could potentially happen is the world economy could fall based on this. Excuse me. But something I need to reiterate with all passion and discussion about this, the overwhelming fear that we see and we hear all the time is, how will this affect us? And is this something that we need to be concerned about? My young son and even my wife and others basically posing the same question. We're all asking the same question. We've been safe in America forever. There hasn't been a physical threat to our borders since, I think, the Spanish-American War. We have been the nation itself and the strategies have been very strategic in our activities to ensure that our military presence has been elsewhere, everywhere else. And that brings an advantage to the American government, because if we, as all military suggestions suggest, we have the rights to their resources and immediate access to their people, then we can cause an immediate threat, causing them more of a hardship than a hardship is to our people in the mainland of America. It's strategic. It's a brilliant strategy, but it also comes with consequences. Because we're all over the world, we're not totally certain, America, how many bases we have all over the place and where they're located. Folks, we have military bases surrounding Russia. We have military bases all through Europe. We have military bases down even Antarctica. We have military bases. And every base has a squadron or two of soldiers ready to leap at any call to whatever defense that we need to do. We have hundreds of thousands of people all over the place. And we have some that are not even being accounted for. Secret services. We have these silent soldiers that have been placed here to make sure that we're aware how things are. Then we lean a lot about involvement with our allies. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the NATO, was created to help band together all these nations so they can depend on one another. One of the other decisions that was still leaning was making Ukraine a member of NATO. If they made Ukraine a member of NATO immediately, and I think that was still part of the discussion earlier on at the United Nations, then Ukraine could depend on the defense, the automatic actions of every member in NATO to help and assist Ukraine from being invaded from Russia. So in his efforts, Vladimir Putin's efforts to try to block all that, he moved quickly, and he moved at different realms. He figures, I'm going to take over Ukraine before they get a chance to respond, or Vladimir gets a chance to stand on his own. Did he even consider that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Russians in Russia are standing up and protest. Do you ever think of seeing Russians stand up against its own country, against the actions of its own country? Probably never. See, Putin and our president, good old Uncle Joe, are part of the old guard. The old guard remembers and believes, and we're also supportive of this whole Cold War concept, us versus them, the American front against the commies out west. We believed it. A lot of the overwhelming atmosphere that was developed at that time was solely based on us versus them. It was never about the people. The people, the side benefit is to say the people felt safe or provided certain things. Our brave men and women that served in the military have been put through some extraneous situations, dangerous situations, critical situations, and not afforded the respect that they should receive. Not respected by giving them the proper medical attention and not giving them a king's welcome as they returned home. Historically speaking, we're still in February, which is Black History Month. And speaking specifically about our Black soldiers that made those soldiers, when they came back to America, they were treated like shit. They weren't treated in honor and respect as they should be because of the color of their skin. Not only did they have to come back to racism and all kinds of hardships here, they were facing it abroad when Nazi Germans or the German Reich, the Third Reich, were passing out information just like Mussolini about African Americans or Black soldiers they were part mongoloid, part monster-like, part animal, wearing tails and what have you, creating this whole image that was false in every which way. It's so negative, so disheartening how it continues to do that. So that's the truth in essence about how that was. So now coming back as a circle, when you have now Vladimir Putin talking about how he's trying to defend the Russian people from neo-Nazis, how credible is that? How credible is that when his own nations, his own patriots, who are proud Russians who live in Russia, are going out in the streets, even in spite of the situation, knowing that because they have such a harsh and cruel dictator at the helm, that them in protest of this war could mean they could lose their lives. Their families could be hurt, that they're still standing up. Ukrainians out there being tortured, killed, just because someone's fictitious idea of what power and what's necessary, and the evil will of two men. And I say the two because one we already know is Vladimir Putin. The other one I'm not going to mention right now, but I'll tell you later on as we continue to talk and link about these discussions. So the war is now developing. Will it grow? There's a big and growing potential that it will grow to increase more people. More people is not only the Ukrainians that are sitting up and defending themselves, and we're sending our thoughts and prayers to them to help defend them, because the innocent don't deserve to be involved in the madness of one man and his desire to be this super huge ruler, using the archaic idea of being a ruler. We send our prayers, but more nations that will be involved. The United Kingdom at tonight's meeting over the United Nations had specifically and vehemently suggested to them, we are not in support of this aggression by the Soviet nation. And if the Soviet government continues to move on this way, we will respond effectively and without remorse. Utilizing those terms are suggesting that we've drawn a line. The minute you get close to that line, we're about to send all kinds of hell and fury your way. United Kingdom doesn't come alone. They usually come with everyone else who's an ally to them. And that's also including Israel, United Nations, Canada, all of the other larger nations in the world. Since UK and Germany are on the footsteps of the USSR or the Federation, the Russian Federation, it suggests that what's building and developing has a very big potential of getting larger. What does America, how do they respond? How does the United Kingdom respond? Or we will send sanctions, extreme hardship sanctions that will tighten the economy. We will eliminate strings, and now we will take all the Russian assets that are in our banks. We will take any funds that are available in our banks that are Russian are now ours. We will create the sanction process that no goods and services go to Russia coming from America or any of our allies. Those sanctions are there. Nothing that have been exported from Russia back into America will no longer continue. So now they'll have no economy. That, as Uncle Joe basically has said, will hopefully cause long-term hardship, long-term concerns. The problem with that is that causes hardship on the average people, the blue-collar people that work in and live in Russia, the innocent people who are probably out there protesting and stuff. They will be subjected to this stuff. Is it the right thing? I don't know. I'm more inclined to believe that it isn't. I think it's a foul disposition that we have to execute this kind of action towards poor and impoverished people to hopefully impact people who don't give two shits, which is the Russian oligarch and everyone else. Vladimir Putin could be, in essence, the richest man in Asia, if not the richest man in the world. He has seized millions. He works with oligarchs all over the place, playing chess with, as was once I heard someone referred to Donald Trump as the tangerine demon, going back and forth to say who's the biggest, who got the biggest boner, whatever the situation is. But he himself has the resources to be the wealthiest man. So any of these hardships will not be had. He won't face any. He won't face any at all. Will he actually feel sensitive to his people? I don't think he will. I don't think the man gives two shits about the average people. I think he works on the philosophy, the ideology of Russia being an entity, not a country comprised of people with human hearts and considerations and hardships and fears. I don't think he considers them at all. I don't even think he gives a shit. If he could be a nation of just one man and the rest, he would do it. He would do it. So, in further conversation, this is what the United Kingdom has suggested. This is what Germany has suggested. This is what a lot of the allies that come together in the United Nations suggested. We all agree that we're going to no longer support Russia and we're going to squeeze them financially, economically, and hope that we'll continue to do so. Another factor they talked about before is making sure that Russia doesn't have access through the internet. Adrian, I just put it on Facebook, the link. I don't know what's going on. Link it out. I'll put it also on YouTube. I don't know if it'll help on YouTube. Here's the link. The link is on YouTube too. I don't know why. So, back to what I was saying before, with the harshness of the sanctions that it had, is this a great concept? Think about it. It's going to take, I would say, an extraordinary amount of time for it to truly put a pressure on the people of Canada in hopes that they would put pressure on its government. During that time of waiting for that pressure continues, lives are being lost. Blood is being spread. Missiles, bombings, planes, tanks, everything that are comprised of a war or elements of a war are continue going on. Is this a little too late? Is this Putin proving how much of a punk ass that we are as a nation or as a group of nations when you put that much emphasis and power right at your front door? And I don't say this to be disrespectful, because I think it's a hard situation to think. Is it good? Do we move forward? Should we be moving forward? And should we go into war against this guy? Because I think what also needs to be considered is that whatever this is going on now, it's going to be not for a short time. It's going to be for a long time. So we're talking about a lot of pressure on the a lot of hardship that can transpire, and this could actually take on a trickle on further, longer than it's ever been. Remember, we've been in Afghanistan in excess of 20 years. That's a long time to be in a battle. Vietnam, we were there some excess over 14 years. I could be mistaken. I'm sorry. And for anyone who had anyone who's a military soldier involved in everything, with all my due respect, it's just I don't have the data, but it's just giving you a number of an excessive amount of time that our presence was in those areas, and we've actually experienced a lot of hardship, and a lot of our American soldiers have died, just as well as a lot of other soldiers and regular civilians have died in those areas also. So this is something that we need to consider. The other tension, as I said before, the other condition that was talked about is the cyber condition that America is suggesting that we're going to have restrictions on. Now, we know that there's international links in the Atlantic Ocean and the Pacific Ocean that connects outside of the. I did, Adrian. It's right above your name. I'm surprised why you don't see it. I don't know why you don't see it. I'll do it again. Another point that is just sad because you have elements of it being that they can restrict internet, which I think will have to be done because we already know that Russia had already enlisted hackers, super hackers, to do a lot of their deeds all over. And we have people who are super hackers in Russia on their own, not even associated to Russia, the Federation or the military armament or the military itself, just Russians who had the knowledge and wherewithal to do all kinds of damage and taking and stealing and doing a whole bunch of stuff. So if they, by some odd reason, get an opportunity to participate in this military, what we have is a potential threat that we've never seen before. We're talking about a military threat that also includes anything that's connected to the internet, banking, our electric grid, our gas, the way our food chain is. They could potentially put an attack on the world and specifically the United States in a way we haven't seen before. And I don't know if we're able to address it. The United States is now put in full effect our military armament using NORAD, North Atlantic Regional Air Command. I forget what the acronym is, but it's the base where it's known to have the largest computers, and it uses a lot of their military will using the internet, fighting cyber issues worldwide from there, NORAD. And that right there is we already know that there's been reports saying there's a lot of activity in that area. So I guess they're preparing for what potentially could happen and preparing and they're still probably attacking. They're probably trying to encase Russia and the Russian government and its reach all over the world. But in doing so, they have to also encase. Forgive me, y'all. Let me pause. Welcome tonight, my man Adrian. How are you, bro? I don't want you to just keep on saying.
Just getting off the road, man. You know what I'm saying? Listen to you. I said, look, let me join in on you. Let me chime in on this section here.
Okay.
You know, this is something that I tend to follow very closely, more so than sports. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So back to what I was saying before. I think hypothetically, what needs to be done and what's being done as far as the internet-based or the cybersecurity of the military attack is going on. Not only do they have to conceal and compact Russia, it also has to separate Russia from communist China and India in the presence that way, because utilizing the powers, and that's going to be difficult because some of the smartest computer-based minds are located in India. And surrounding India, you have a lot of corporations. You have Taiwan, that is a major hub, Singapore, major hub for international banking. The World Bank is located there. You have so much in that general region that depends on the connectivity and depends on the interactions, that if they were to lean heavy on one side, it would impact the world. So the threat is there. We don't know how it's going to continue, but Adrian, if you've been listening, I know you've been listening. What's been resonating in your ear?
I've been listening very, very carefully. You know what I'm saying? I was on WBLS just Wednesday night, You know, I was schooling those people up there, so I'm back down here now. You know what I'm saying? So the situation is this. You know, during the recent Beijing Olympics, you had Putin paying a visit to China. He was setting everything up during that period of time while he was there,
Mm-hmm.
because he knows exactly what his next move was going to be. Not only that, he had a mega yacht out in the water, into the international water, that he needed to get back to Russia as soon as possible. Because once he actually attacked, they would have seized it if it was in international waters. You see what I'm saying? So he had to get all of his pieces back in place. Kind of find out also that I believe it was either yesterday or today. You know, the stocks. As far as Russia is concerned, they hit what is $100 billion loss. So they got hit already. The oligarchs and some of those guys. Putin family is living in the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
So, they may end up just suspending their passports, or probably keeping them somewhere as hostage also.
Of course.
Because So this thing
Hostage or
goes
protected.
relatively deep. It goes very deep.
Hell yeah.
Not only that, but you mentioned something about the United Nations,
Mm-hmm.
having a coalition with the United Nations. That's the reason why what happened was you have Ukraine that was on the fence whether or not they want to join, the United Nations or not. And Russia's like, we don't want them to join. But the fact of the matter is, Russia, when it broke up, Ukraine was part of Russia before they actually broke up. This is during the Gorbachev years. When Reagan's like the wall must come down and the whole 9 yards, all of this stuff, break up Russia, all of that fell apart. So Putin's main thing is to put all of the pieces back together to try to build up a huge mega Russia now. He's trying to bring back the good old days. But at the same time, you have President Xi of China sitting on the fence to see how everything is going to go off with Putin, because Xi wants Taiwan. That's the next move. So he wants to see exactly what goes on, with Russia and Ukraine, so that he could actually move on to China and Taiwan and try to do the same thing also. So these two minds were actually together as one during the Beijing Olympics, and they were plotting it all the way around. That's the reason why when a lot of reporters spoke to Xi as far as this war is concerned, he never condemned Russia. He condemned the United States and says the United States' fault for starting this war.
Yep. And I'll say this. I supported the idea or the framework that Xi had mentioned a few times about putting a mirror in front of America, because one of the things that were talked about was how African Americans have been treated alone. He mentioned that specifically.
He knows about it. So does
right.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that he mentioned this in a world court, a world discussion about how we treat his own people, and he made reference to that stuff. So he's paying attention to the world.
But at the same time, China has a substantial amount of human rights violation against the Uyghurs.
Absolutely, that's without question.
The Uyghurs are nothing but Chinese who actually so happen to be Muslims.
Right.
They're the Uyghurs. So he's locking those people up like crazy. The same way the people from Ukraine, Putin doesn't give a damn about them. He just wants to exterminate all of these people, like Hitler did during Germany.
Right.
Same damn thing. Different era.
But we're just lost in semantics. Because what I was saying is I just support the idea. I don't support the man and what he's doing upon the nation. I just like how he's using this mental chess to try to bring this effect, because America's always try to play justice, where it's justifiable, the cops all over the place, and you have to listen to Big Brother. And then everybody who's telling you is like, yo, you got to be careful that you don't shit where you eat, because what you're doing all over the world is just as bad, if not worse, in some regions. And that's the reality Americans are not willing to accept, that the fact that America's not spot clean, we have a lot of bloodshed that we have to be accountable for. However, the general consensus of Americans are probably all on board that this is an unjust war. We don't like the fact that people are being treated so badly, killed and subjugated to hardships the way they are in China, in Russia, in America, in our back.
But look what happened in Afghanistan. America went into Afghanistan and tore that joint up. We went into, they bombed the hell out of, Iraq, the whole 9 yards. I mean, Iraq, we know that entire Iraq war was nonsense. the weapons of mass destruction. It was never there from the get-go.
Not at all.
You see, because
yep.
prior to, they actually claiming the weapons of mass destruction, there was a particular part of airspace that a lot of the Iraqi jets, they could not fly over that airspace, over Iraq. It was like a blockade over there. But America wanted to, it was because of Bush. Papa Bush, they threatened to kill him, and he decided when his son became president to try to seek revenge on Saddam Hussein and take him out.
Yeah,
that was the main objective. No matter how they cut it, it will still end up being the same damn thing.
Yep. I mean, we know that's the case. The idea is, how do we, I guess, weave through all this stuff to try to make sense and what we need to consider moving forward? Because we know about the air, as they call the curtain. It was used in the Sudan. It was used against Gaddafi. It's something that the American government, as well as Israeli government, sometimes utilizes when they try to move on other people, and they'll put it right up. And that what that does, that requires us to have the airship. We have to have a aircraft carrier immediately in that area for us to impose that, and that may have been one of the reasons why Putin was aggressively moving towards the Black Sea, because he knows the Black Sea makes the Russian Federation a sitting target. If America gets an aircraft carrier in that area, there's an air threat that he may not be able to deal with. Russia has missiles, they have tanks, they have a lot of people. What they don't have is a big air.
But you see, the fact of the matter is, United States will only protect the borders, around Ukraine, that they would not actually interrupt any one of the allies. But as far as America and Russia, that will start another world war. And that's what Biden said. I don't want to start another freaking world war with Russia, because then you're going to have China's going to jump on the side of Russia, and all of the other countries are going to jump on the side of the United States, and we're going to be back to World War III. Yep. You've heard rumors of this particular type of war coming down the pike, but we're pretty much on the precipice of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. We're probably closer than we've ever been.
Yeah. And like it says, and that's one of the main reasons why President Xi wants to actually see how Russia is going to fare with this situation. Because remember, when Hong Kong was given back to China, it was a democratic country, and then they cracked down on Hong Kong and said, "Oh hell no, you're now becoming communist," and they lock all of their politicians up.
Yeah.
So this is what's going on. They want to make a lot of these countries, communist countries, once again.
Yeah. I mean, we knew that was eventually going to happen. The sad part about it is that the allies who are supposed to be allies don't necessarily move in the message or in the ways that we need to. I was watching earlier. Did you get a chance to watch a little bit about the United Nations, the G7 summit that they had earlier?
Yeah, I heard about G7. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was watching a little bit, and all I kept thinking was, you have some of our allies that are really great at heart. It's just they don't have any kind of military presence. Gabon, the ambassador from Gabon was speaking valiantly about this and then how it should be and so. And all I kept thinking about, if shit gets bad, what can Gabon do? I mean, they probably can't do much at all to really add to.
Because a lot of the power and the superior power that actually holds NATO together is the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Trump trying to dismantle the entire thing because he was so much in love with Putin.
Yep.
That's what was going on.
Yep.
I mean, Donald Trump had a love affair with Putin and Kim Jong-un. I thought all of them would have had a threesome or something. You know what I'm saying?
Did you hear that shit the other day when he had he called him and apparently had televised this discussion with Putin, called him a genius? So
well, not only that,
what you thinking?
Not only that, because like I said, Donald Trump has his own bit of problems happening at the same time. Because the Attorney General, Letitia James actually says, she's not going to quit this case whatsoever. She's going to see this thing to the very end, even though the district attorney for the district for Manhattan actually resigned. He just got up there and he resigned. But Letitia James is like, I want to see this all the way through. But he still have other cases pending down south.
Yeah, I don't think it was the DA. I think it was two separate prosecutors.
It was the district attorney for Manhattan district attorney.
it was two prosecutors that are anyway. We know that there's some personnel that's supposed to be involved that resigned for some odd reason, and they're still not giving details why, which makes it crazy. But Letitia James,
Everybody said it's definitely crazy because this man has the freaking goods on Donald Trump, if I've ever seen it. You know, he has, like a straight flush against this man, and he just up and resigned. It makes one, think and wonder, when he was running for that particular position, did Donald Trump donated any money to your campaign? That's something that you might want to look at.
I think there's a greater concern, and it really, I mean, it's part of the whole situation because if you look at it, they've been playing like two bullies, and in the background, they've been trying to devise plans to make themselves even bigger, even greater. From Donald Trump trying to play a bigger role in the world by creating Trump Towers in Moscow, to Putin having access to a lot of the other areas that he's never been. Like Donald Trump gave him access to some military awareness that happened in Virginia, in the area in Virginia. How you give him access? I mean, they were utilizing technology that they shouldn't have had access to.
Just remember, Mo, Donald Trump was nothing but an American experiment. That's all he really was. It was an experiment that went awry. It's no different from the freaking Frankenstein. You know what I'm saying?
That's a hell of a way to put it. I like
that was an experiment. He was an experiment. That's all it really was. That's it.
It's sad though, but that's the tangerine demon is what I was talking about earlier. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of discussion where he and Putin have already gotten to agreement was in order for them to have ultimate power, they have to be willing to destroy everything ultimately and gain everything in the end. Remember, they're two followers of prophecy, of ancient Nordic prophecy.
It says in Revelations, in the last days you will have wars, like what's happening now, and rumors of wars, which around the planet there's a lot of, you have pestilence, you have famine, you're gonna have the whole damn 9 yards. You're gonna have, the what is it, the four horsemen coming up from all different corners of the freaking world. Mm-hmm. And you have those guys already. You had Xi, you have Putin, you had Trump, and you have the other one, the one down in Brazil. Mm-hmm. There it is right there. Mm-hmm. So the stage is actually set in actuality. And this is what we're living in, like you said, the last days. Anything is to be expected.
Yeah. It's just, I guess I'm more firm to believe that a lot of this stuff was already, well, I ain't gonna say it. We were all seeing it coming down the pike. We were all told in different frameworks, whether it's prophetic language or science or whatever. We saw how shit was developing. We know how the human mind is. We know how oligarchs and patriot and super type of predatory dictators act. We've seen all this stuff. So we've seen historically how it is. It's just, were we ready to enact a change or to address this immediately? Because I was also saying this, I said, since America knew so much anguish could happen if Putin got on this, and because Putin is even more threat than Donald Trump was to world peace and the way things are, with us and other nations who are known for our military abilities, using Secret Service, using like SEAL Team 6, all these undercover ninjas that we've trained all around the world, where these people are technologically fit, having the technology go in, military ability, combat ability, martial arts ability, and the whole nine, but yet we can't go into Russia and take this fool out for the benefit of the entire world.
Because what happened, there it is. Because what he's done to, like he says, two wrongs doesn't make it right. Let's start with that. Okay, so he moved into Ukraine and actually took over Ukraine. Ukraine was on the border of trying to determine whether or not it wants to become a part of NATO or not. Because if Ukraine would have become part of NATO, they would have been protected by the UN, by the other nations like the United States and the United Nations. There's no doubt about that. That's the reason why when now Ukraine is like actually saying, well, we want to be a sovereign, independent nation, but they have no jets to fight against freaking Putin. Putin has air superiority right now. That's what he has over this country. That country does not have much of a military fight in them. Yeah, they don't have any planes, jets, or any of that shit. So when Putin is just bombing these guys from the air, it's ridiculous. but they did not want to become part of the United Nations. It would have helped them out. That's the reason why we're sending all those troops to put a blockade, right? That they do not step foot over that line. That's the line right there. They
But
step foot over, it's going to start a big war.
they did make a request to the United Nations to be considered to become a member. They did. That was the discussion that was supposed to be having.
They were on the fence with that stuff, but Putin kept saying, "I don't want them to become a part of that," because he knew that the other nations would attack him. This will go all the way back to World War II, in actuality, with dealing with Hitler.
Well, this was the rush that was also taking place at the United Nations today. When Brazil had made that sponsored that specific article about lending United Nations support, and the 11-4.
I believe that's Article 5. I think that's Article 5, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a new article. It's a very new article. I looked at the number. I didn't even bother to read it. But Brazil had pushed this whole concept to lend them United Nations support, which in essence is the first step necessary for them to be considered becoming a member of the United Nations. Like, they need support, because since they need United Nations support, they might as well become an umbrella organization or part of the organization. And that's how Greece got in. That's how Italy had got in, because at one point in time, they don't have enough support, military support, for them to be able to defend themselves. So everyone got together to support. It's usually smaller nations that be involved in NATO. So I think that was the whole case. I know Cyprus was in the discussion about this whole thing about inclusion also. So Cyprus being the home base of NATO. So I know they made a request, because one analyst at Gravitas was basically talking about how there's steps to be taken first, and Putin is aware of how the steps are for them to be considered a member, and not only a member in good standing, which deserves military support, because there's other nations that were NATO nations like Nigeria. Now, Nigeria's issue with China, NATO wasn't going to get involved because they're not a good standing or a front member, one of the G7. They're just part of the full Congress of the United Nations. So there's a lot of factors in play. I don't know to the fullest extent that I'm comfortable in believing that the United Nations won't automatically adopt Ukraine to come in relief, because
well, right now it's a hypothetical, because that horse has already left the barn, and that's just the bottom line.
Yeah,
So we can't actually speak on something that's not going to happen. It's irrelevant. You can't, right now we see that Russia is bombing the hell out of Ukraine. That's what we know is a fact. Whether they could become a member or not, that's irrelevant at this point in time.
well,
So right now we're going to have to deal with the here and now.
Yeah. As we're talking about, I'm not going to say a membership type of rule. I'm just saying to be considered a location or a nation deserving of protection of the United Nations, because Russia is just moving on one who's potentially in there. That's why we haven't moved in aggressively. The United Nations hasn't moved in aggressively, because we really don't have the rights to. It's just protecting from a farthest extent.
Well,
Now,
but remember, with Poland and some of the other countries on the outside, we're protecting their borders, going all the way around. If you look at the map, we're protecting their borders with Poland, because they're all part of the United Nations.
Right, United Nations.
That's the reason why we're sending 80,000 troops or whatever the hell it is over there to protect and make sure that the Russians doesn't come over. You see, after World War II, because I mentioned this online also, after World War II, they made a pact that, hey, look, this what has happened here during World War II will never happen again. Whereas one country will actually be able to, take out and try to conquer a whole lot of other countries to build it up. So the United Nations were actually created to prevent that from happening. But Putin is like, look, Russia, Ukraine was part of our before we broke up, and we want that back. Just like some of the other parts that they wanted to take back also when Barack Obama was in office. They took back another piece then too.
Well, as we see as this unfolds, there's certain critical factors I know we have to consider. The fact that India and China both says, now we're not going to get involved in this, has basically drawn a line to suggest that we're going to sit back and let y'all fall apart. And the minute we think it's an opportunity for us to get involved for our benefit, then we'll get on.
Well, you don't have to anticipate. Well, China is on the fence with Russia. China is in the background of Russia because China has an interest in Taiwan. a
Even
serious
outside
major
of,
interest.
even outside of that, China depends on the oil and gas that they can get from Russia.
Well, the thing about it, all of the sanctions, that's the reason why Putin was in China during the Beijing Olympics, putting some, if they hit us with a sanction here, can you supply us with that? If they hit us with a sanction here, can you supply us with that? That's what he was doing when he was in China. He was putting the deal together.
Yeah. Which is, what's crazy though? You know what I also kept thinking? I said, could this been the reason why the young lady who was caught with steroids in the system, who's a figure skater, could this be the reason why the Olympic Committee said, all right, go ahead, we're good? Because they knew in the background there's discussions of war. And Putin, being a Russian, an oligarch back in the day who's very supportive of the dominance of Russian skaters, loves to push on this stuff. And that because this young lady represents Russia.
You have to remember, and a lot of people, talk about Putin, but remember, once a KBG agent, always a KBG agent. And that's Putin right there by itself.
Oh, yeah.
Putin is not a very tall guy. Putin only stands 5'5". He's a small guy.
Yeah.
He's probably about the same size as Kim Jong-un. They probably stand, face to face with each other.
He's a little guy, but he's very dangerous, right?
And that's the thing. But some of the people, like I was watching Amanpour and Company on PBS, where this one lady says Putin is not crazy, he's sick, and that's what's going on. It's a big difference, And this lady lived in Ukraine to say he's a sick man. Well, so he just want to pull the Soviet Union, the whole entire thing, back together again.
Again, what is the concept that we lived in? Make America great again. That's Putin's concept. Make a Russian whole again.
Yeah, he wants to pull everything back. I think it broke his heart when Russia split up. So he's like, I got to bring all of this stuff back together again. But at the same time, on the televisions in Russia, he's actually telling his people this is a peacekeeping mission. That's what he's telling them on TV. But in actuality, he's invading a freaking other country. That's the mind of a sick individual.
It's amazing the bullshit he was trying to promote, saying that he's going against neo-Nazis that are developing in Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly.
He knows the world right now is paying attention, and there's certain red flags that if you're talking about neo-Nazis, everyone in the world is against this whole concept.
That's the thing with communists, because with communists, they hide all the truth and the facts. But that's no difference from being in a democratic world also, like the United States. They also hide all of the truth and the facts from us. So basically, the same thing, but different color.
It's a shame. But I'm waiting to see how it goes on. And there's a lot of discussions because it's a strategic war. And if people don't pay attention about war theory and historically how wars took place, World War II, World War I, it's strategy. It didn't start out with everyone fighting. It started with one nation against the other and how it trickles on to other, and other one getting involved, the threats of this and that. It builds and develops.
Very interesting.
As Putin is in power right now, pushing against Ukraine, the back of his mind says, I have to move quickly and effectively, strong in the very, very beginning, because they're going to be so pensive that my moves are going to go beyond this, that they're not going to really deal with things right now. Even the president, Vladimir, from Ukraine, had basically said the same thing. He says, what is America going to do? America wanted to be this way and that way. What are they going to do? We need your assistance. What did Joe Biden do? We're going to send you missiles. We're going to send you armament. We're going to send you tanks, everything that you would need to defend yourself if you could. Weaponry in the whole nine. What is Vladimir doing? Passing around to his nation, to all the patriots that are there trying to defend themselves on their own. Can it be done? Hell yeah. We've seen plenty of times where small nations have defended themselves against larger nations. Can it be done? Yes. Will it be done? Probably not, because we're dealing with Putin here. And Putin is in power with one of the nation's strongest military threats on the planet. It's not the nation, because the nation of the Russian Federation doesn't seem to be supportive of it. You have a lot of protests all up and down in the Russian population protesting against this. Outside of the world,
the protest ain't gonna mean a damn thing, because remember, at the end of the day, he's still communist.
Oh, I know that, but it ain't got nothing to do with communism. Communism has to do with finances. Communism, capitalism.
Yeah, but they can protest as much as they want, because they were protesting, in Tiananmen Square many years ago in China. Look what the Chinese government did to them.
Well, we know that, but it has also left a strike. it's not an absolute answer to things, but it shows the mentality of the people. Will it change anything? No, but if you have enough people constantly with that same protest, that could be an overthrow that nation is.
Let me tell you something. Recently, within my time, actually, not, but I would say less than 10 years, less than a decade, they actually voted Xi in office for life. He's a lifer. They can't move him out of there. That's it. He's done. And that's the reason why Donald Trump wanted the same thing also.
But you
Donald
saw who
Trump,
voted for him.
his
The Red Party,
entire
his
nation,
party.
look, his entire nation and his people,
No,
and the
not his
party,
entire
the whole
nation.
9 yards.
Their election process deals with specific parties. His is the military party that voted in because they were in power. They voted in power for infinite power.
The man is a lifer. Anyway, you cut the Brady's a lifer.
I know that, but we're talking about philosophies of nations and so on, so forth, the people. We're talking about the people in power, then none of this stuff matters.
You know?
Because none of it matters if you're talking about the people in power. Only the people in power. Xi can send out his military and so because he's in power. Putin can send it because he's in power.
Well, obviously,
but the power is in the people.
Well, like I said, you said the power is in the people, but at the end of the day, the government is still running the people because the government is made up by the people for the people.
Not there. Not there.
Like I said, it's no different from like some of the ones down south. They got into office, they're there, and it says, hey, we're going to actually vote them in for life. Bingo, no. It's done.
The concepts of democracy voted by the people for the people does not go in oligarchs or in any kind of situations where you have someone who has a supreme authority. That is not how it works.
Well, but you might say that's not how it works. But look when Gorbachev was in office. Okay, Gorbachev, they broke up the entire Russian nation into bits and pieces. And that's the reason why Putin is trying to put the whole thing back together again. It's like Humpty Dumpty's men.
That was economic failure.
Look at the guy that was running against Putin. That guy, they actually poisoned his ass on the airplane or when he was, overseas because they want to make sure that there's no competition here. Bottom line.
Right. And that's the threat of the way the politics are going on. He's not the only one because there was about 4 or 5 people opposing. He was just the biggest threat at the time. And thank God he survived it. He didn't die. He ain't the same guy.
He did not die.
Yeah, but he survived it. He's not the same guy.
Yeah, they poisoned him big time. It's from Kim Jong-un, how his family members were being poisoned. His brother was killed.
Shit, Kim Jong-un is considered him killing his own father. Come on, man.
Killed his brother.
We're talking about
his brother.
His father.
Kim Jong-un killed his brother also when he was overseas.
That's the most recently had him killed, exactly. But he killed his father. We're talking about the illness of supreme power.
Okay, we're talking about the illness of supreme power because that's not where my conversation was headed. But
I'm saying you were talking about people being voted in for life by the people.
Correct.
It wasn't true.
He is definitely one of those people that's been voted into office, but whether it's by his party or another party or some other communist party, he is in there for life, and that's my point. Period. End of story. That's it. He's in there for life.
If the Chinese people didn't want that to happen, it could be overthrown. It could be overthrown. Just like that.
Well, like it says, it's not going to happen. Trust and believe. It's not going to happen.
Okay, if you feel so, okay.
Yeah, I'm very confident in that.
I'm saying that every nation has to stand on the foundation of support. Every nation. There is no such thing as an oligarchy that stands on its own that withstands time. Nothing. We've seen it historically, traditionally, through centuries and eons. No nation that's military strong stand on this whole supreme power lasts long because that begets evil. And this whole concept, no nation has ever been that way. Ever. As long as if you treat your people badly, you'll see a revolt. And a nation such large, they're scared of how the resource is going on. That's why you don't see it. There is a form of democracy in Russia. It's just still the way things are. And the Bolshevik system of democracy is different. Their communism is set up different. It's a socialist communism. It's a little different. But because he uses his military prowess being able to kill people, he stays in power. It's not because of the power structure. It's this killing process. And we talked about China a second ago. You mentioned yourself, the man who went over top and was the the head of the trading company, what was that? Bing or whatever his nation was
Okay.
missing.
You know, one thing I like about Google and stuff, this is
Who?
very, I sold phones and it's very important. I'm going to read something to you here. China's Xi allowed to remain president for life as the term limits removed. So he's a lifer. He's a lifer.
And what's that saying?
Oh, that I like. Just like I said, he's a lifer. He's going to be in there for life.
What is? He's there based on the structure that they
Okay.
put themselves.
At the end of the day, anywhere you cut the slice of bread, it still end up. He's going to be in there for life. Okay, they removed the term limits. He's going to be in there for life. So it is what it is.
Okay.
Potatoes, potato. He's going to be in there for life.
Your opinion is based on what you see in front of you.
Correct. What I see and what I read. That's my opinion.
I understand. And my opinion is, if the people want something different, the people all over the world will stand up for something different.
They took their stand, and he's in there for life. It is what it is.
They didn't take the stand. It's their military.
Well, anyway you cut it, Mo, the damn guy is going to be in there for life.
He's only saying life. You got to live life to say he was there for life.
If those people are in there for life, they're there for life. Anyway you cut it, they're still in there for life.
If you got a situation, he gets up with Russia, all of a sudden he comes to a fight. You think he's going to be there?
Yeah, I think that he will still be there. Yes.
I don't think he'll be there.
If a fight breaks out, he's going to side with Russia. He's going to side with Russia. There's no doubt about that.
I'm not talking about if the fight breaks out. He doesn't want a bigger threat. Well, if there's a threat posed upon him, he ain't going to be there.
He's sitting on the fence waiting to see how this turns out. That's all.
Because he doesn't want to be threatened. The minute he puts
he doesn't want to be threatened, he wants to see what's going to go down with the United Nations and the United States.
Military power is not as strong without his asset allies.
The information I'm supplying is based on what I've seen on the documentaries from Ammon Point Company and some of the PBS shows.
Okay? I hear you, but that just because it's reported doesn't mean
like I said,
infinite.
Well, like at the same time, some of your facts, seems to be a little bit skewed.
Skewed? What facts? What facts? You want to talk about what they decided? That's
look, at the end of the day, like I said, the bottom line is, okay, my belief is what I see is what it is. I'm not trying to impose it on you. It is what it is.
I'm not opposing anything. I just believe in the people. You're trying to say, not ever. No, not ever.
You're not listening to me here. I says my belief. I started off that conversation with my belief. You're getting
I hear you.
Okay.
And that's what I've been saying. And you even got to the point where
my belief is what it is. And that's where
you went Ammon Poor. You did all that stuff to tell me something that there's no debate to it.
Like I said, that's where it is. That's where I see it. So,
but I'm saying there's no debate to it. Are you listening to me?
Yeah, there's no debate. In actuality, you're right.
There's no debate. If this is something they decided, there's no question that they didn't decide it. I'm just saying that you're playing it like that's an absolute, no matter what. I'm like,
I know. I said my opinion. My opinion.
And
one man's opinion.
I'm saying the same thing.
Give me a conjunction and what? No, and nothing.
Because you said your opinion, and I'm only talking about your opinion. Okay. And in your framework, you're making it as an absolute permanent decision.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. Definitely
did you say?
Not.
Did you? Or did you not
I just mentioned to you. Okay.
Did you make it a bottom line?
No, like I said before, it is.
Did you make a bottom line?
Bottom line is it is what it is. That's what I said. Okay. Bottom line. That's it.
Okay.
Moving right along.
Okay.
Moving right along.
I'm saying.
Hey, you're saying you say what you got to say, and I did. So it is what it is.
Okay, I'm saying.
On to the next one.
Breathe. Let's talk. What's up?
Hey, it is what it is. Your nice weather today.
Okay, and that's opinion too, right?
Okay. Hey, because the sun, it was nice to me. That's good enough. All right.
It is absolutely. It's better to see the sun than none at all, right?
Any day above ground is a good day.
Yep, absolutely. So, speaking of something else less sensitive, COVID. Did you see how they're deciding to lower the restrictions?
I've seen it, but it was inevitable. So, no surprise there.
Okay. You saw the background information. Are they saying that some data suggestion that the numbers of people are lesser, but then depends on who's saying it. There's more scream of the next variant coming about. You see that?
No.
Okay. CDC was
As
just
far
talking.
as COVID is concerned, the CDC, you keep hearing different things from all over the damn place. So the whole damn bucket has been watered down. So let whatever happens happen. Let nature takes its course. Where I look at it.
You
Yes,
said
sir.
nature. Well, I guess using that same terminology, it was good reporting suggesting that natural immunity has surpassed the vaccine concept. It's you're better if you're naturally immune, and then if you add the booster, it helps out. So they're also talking about pushing the fourth booster. So I don't know how mixed conversations or mixed information is expected to be accepted by the masses. It's really difficult. What you think?
Well, people going to do what they want to do anyway. At the end of the day, we have already seen that. Donald Trump is no longer in office. The people going to do what they want to do, and this whole country is in turmoil. The whole world is in turmoil. That's why I look at it.
Very, very true. Very, very true. So I guess we have simple things. Sometimes simple things just make up everything. Let's like celebrate the Jamaican bobsled team doing a successful run again in the Olympics. It's good to see them brothers go out there and do what they do.
Yeah, I didn't follow the Olympics very closely to tell you the truth this year.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's just
I mean,
I'm not watching it as much. It's just I know that rung out to me because I guess the impossible stories of victory. That's cool. It's cool. I like seeing it. I like seeing little things like that. I saw Erin Jones being the first African American woman in speed skating. She did an impeccable job and winning a gold medal. Was it? No, not a gold medal. She won a silver, but she still medaled. I said that was an amazing thing. Young lady and her story, great story. I don't know if Mackler, I think her name is Mackler, the other African American woman who's a mom, bobsled. I don't know if she did anything, but it was a lot of emphasis being made on that. So it was good. I did see. I don't know. Well, you said yourself you're not watching anything, but I know highlights. I saw a lot of the errors that took place. A lot of people have hurt themselves. Like they had a snowfall, and some of the tracks where the bobsleds and everything were covered and caused a lot of injuries. So there's a lot of discussion about that. The downhill, the slope skiing, people losing their skis. It's really horrible. I couldn't imagine flying in the air over 100 miles an hour and to not have the safe mechanism to land and just land on you and it probably hurt. It was something.
yeah, that's why they're professionals.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't try it at home. Period.
yeah. In some nations, that's the only thing they do, and they get whatever they can from it. It's difficult. It's just something that looks painful. Looks fun and sometimes because it's beautiful and graceful. Other times it's like hell no, couldn't be me. I'm not going 100 miles an hour down a mountain on some skis. It's just not within my purview. Not
Yeah,
within.
well, like I said, some just like going around the racetrack over 100 miles an hour on the racetrack. You're in a car and stuff. That car loses control, like what it's done in the past, and ends up in the stands.
What was the concept? Make a left turn. What else? Make a left turn. Make a left turn.
Make a left one continuously. That's what it is.
Just making left turns everywhere. That's hilarious. I know with the things that people look at as sports and consider sports, I'll be like, what? Okay. Like I saw a big fight broke out in handball, international handball. I'm like, what? Okay. It made the news. I'm like, wow, that was something.
Handball. Wow.
Handball. I know. International handball. So you wouldn't necessarily consider that, but I'm like, wow, God, you go from one thing to another.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, yeah. But international players, I guess those things that everybody leaning on right now. So we'll see how it is. I know there was supposed to be some new type of sports being introduced. The one thing, you know what? I don't. One thing that that I see in the Winter Olympics that always troubles me. I know how they go at a distance and they have to do endurance skiing,
Hmm.
but endurance skiing with shooting. I'm
Correct.
like, who the hell made that a sport? That's like, yo, these are soldiers, basically. You know,
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
it's crazy. And it's not easy.
You're skiing and then you go to a certain area, then you
I have
have
to,
to plug the gun and then you shoot whatever, and
yeah.
then continue targets and stuff. Yeah,
I'm like, well, imagine. I don't see how that is, but a lot of people participate. A lot of countries, especially those northern countries in Norway and Sweden and stuff like that. You see all them Switzerland. All I kept thinking to myself, this is a military activity. How the hell is it a sport? How is that a sport? But
Yeah, but the same thing with curling. You
yeah,
know, how is that a sport?
that's hardcore though. That's hardcore.
Yeah, that's hardcore. Yeah, right. You know, sure, I need to get some brothers in the hood and teach them that. I bet you we kick ass.
Yo, for real. All I keep thinking was I said you get enough people involved in it because it's so out of left field that you
Yeah,
would
freaking curling. You know, you take a little thing and you slide it down. You knock the other person out of the circle and shit. Come on,
with a
be fair.
broom.
It's like slow rolling darts. You know.
That's it. That's it. I love it, man. It's funny as hell. All I kept thinking is if you could throw a little twist to it, I
Yeah,
guess
that's curling.
it's the whole concept of hitting connection. They get involved. That and well, I don't know about being a sport, but when you throw darts, the competition darts and axes these days, I'm like, what's up? Y'all got no love in your heart, but curling is definitely my fun sport. I sit
Yeah,
there watching.
yeah, curling.
I sit there and watch and laugh at
It's
it.
pretty
Often.
easy.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's funny.
My sister was telling me about this other sport. I don't know if you probably heard of it. It's called pickleball.
Yes, recently I really never really knew what the hell pickleball was. Then I saw it and I recognized it. It's like, isn't that tennis? It's like a short
Right, just
form.
like tennis. Yes, just like tennis.
And
Well,
then,
on a shorter court and a
yep,
bigger racket and
yeah, it
a
blew up there,
paddle.
big as hell. I'm like, wow. You know,
Yeah,
that couple $100,000 to create pickleball. Uh, what is it called?
pickleball.
Pickleball
Pickleball.
courses. Right, pickleball. It was a couple $100,000 utilized here in the city to build courts, pickleball. And I'm like, what the hell is pickleball? I'm like, okay, cool. I like
Yeah.
different type of things, different
But
sports.
you know, yeah, it might seem a little funny, but there are tournaments out there for actual cash, and there are championships out there for pickleball.
Hell yeah, it's big. It's
Yeah,
big.
it's going big on the West Coast like crazy.
You know what it reminds me of? Have you ever seen a squash match
Hmm.
and how physical that shit gets?
Yeah,
I'm like, yo, these sports like highlight is one of those type of things that you
correct.
have
Highlights a trip.
that shit. You got a pelota coming at you 200 miles an hour, you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, no doubt.
That's crazy. But I love seeing international sports that are weird, different, out of range. But when I saw pickleball, and I was thinking,
Yeah, it's growing. It's growing in popularity.
different, yeah, it's
It's
different.
growing. It's growing in pop. And I'll tell you, if they actually made it a sport, and the inner city kids gets involved in that, they'll enjoy so much that they probably end up, running these things. And
Yeah,
that's what needs to happen.
I can see it. Yeah, it's good. I think all our children should be exposed to all kinds of stuff like that. Pickleball is B1. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it just replaces that whole concept. Well, I ain't gonna say replaces, but you play with sandbags and you're trying to toss it into. There's a certain name when you go using um, like bean bags and tossing it into the hole at opposite
yeah,
direction, like you do stuff like that. It's grown. I guess in warmer temperature, it grows in popularity. But it's one of those type of things that you see it. You see it. I see competitions on ESPN sometimes, changing channels. You don't see nothing. All of a sudden, you see a competition between this team. They have sponsors and all kinds of stuff. It's big in some places, man. But if I guess if you give kids a chance to participate, you probably see a larger positive outcome in a lot of these inner city kids.
yeah. Well, the thing about it is a lot of the money making sports, other than basketball, football, and probably baseball, a lot of the kids wasn't really, into it. A
Yeah,
lot of them are more into video games now than sports in actuality.
yeah.
But if they actually introduce them to some of the new sports that's coming out, like I said, pickleball or whatever the case may be, and they
Hmm.
get a hold of that, they can run with it like crazy.
Yeah, it gives a chance. Like I was really being hopeful when I saw indoor football being introduced in the area. I kept thinking,
Mhm.
I said, that's a good alternative, man. You might, because you got a lot of people who play sports and they're really active in that, and they dedicate so much time and don't get the opportunity to really excel into like a professional side of that sport.
Correct.
So if you get a chance to play international, like I've seen one guy locally here, only one person that I know of that actually took and played rugby in school and then took it internationally and became part of an international rugby team. He was recruited by a team in Europe. And this is a kid whose roots come from the hood. And I'm like, yo, that's wonderful, man. I love hearing.
Yeah, I have a friend of mine. Also, her daughter played basketball overseas in Italy.
Mhm, yeah. And you see a lot of that now.
Hmm.
because unfortunately, the NBA and WNBA only have a certain amount of slots. When you have so many kids with potential, you have international teams and leagues that exist.
Yeah.
You're willing to take that trip, you can probably find a pretty good living. I
Yeah,
think
there
that's
are a few of them. There was this. I can't remember this. I saw a documentary about this young black guy. He's in China and he's
Starbucks.
popular as hell. Yeah,
Starbucks.
Strawberry is one of them. Yeah, there was this other guy, but it wasn't him.
No, because he's in China. He's the
Yeah,
one
I
that.
know he's in China, but there
Yeah.
was another guy also.
Was it okay?
Yeah,
Because I was pleasantly
I
surprised.
know. I know about
Mhm.
Marbury.
Right, Marlboro. I was pleasantly surprised in his story because I remember watching the documentary on him. I didn't know to the extent of what it went and how it took, how he ended up where he is. Now he's like the coach and the overseer of the entire league. He became an iconic figure over there. So much happier. I'm like, you never know, man. And I know in Europe, you have certain kind of, just like in Africa. Africa now it has the NBA and WNBA in certain leagues, and they're
And them
developed.
brothers are tall as hell any damn way. They do a lot of slam dunking. Come on, Manute Bol came from Africa. You know what I'm saying?
There'd be a lot of trees, a lot of
Yeah.
pads, but a lot of trees. But can you imagine it? But the one GM from the Raptors left and helped develop that league. I'm curious to see how it is because, like you said, there's so many people who are tall. But I mean, there's a lot of opportunity for people. Is it just a tree show and shit? When you see people, 7 foot and
You
above,
brothers are pretty damn tall, man. I'm telling you, because remember, you have the Americans and stuff where their ancestors came from Africa, but then you have the Africans who are Africans.
yeah,
You see, so it's like,
yeah, you got,
there ain't nothing watered down about that. They're 100% African.
hell yeah. You got what? Taco Fall. Taco is
It's no different from like the Jamaicans. Jamaicans are descendants of Africans, and like I said, when they go up against the Americans, it's a hell of a challenge. It's a hell
yeah,
of a challenge.
yeah. Speaking of Jamaica, have you heard lately about the track, the development of track? There's supposed to be a threat going on to the sister Joyce Ann Pearson. I think that's her name. She's the top female sprinter in Jamaica. She just recently ran, I think, in Birmingham, in Europe, and it was an indoor, and she lost. She was like floored by somebody young, another young Jamaican. I don't remember. I didn't get a chance to see the highlight. But this is the second time in a row that this young lady won against her, and this sister has been the queen, the top of sprinters worldwide for so long. I mean, she's no joke, man. She is no joke. But this young girl flew by her. I'm like, whoa. We got a female um,
Usain
Bolt,
Bolt.
Usain Bolt, female Usain Bolt. I said that's going to be exciting, man. I can't wait till the Summer Olympics to see.
Yeah, that I enjoy watching that. Now that's a challenge.
Yeah,
I love the Summer Olympics because
yeah,
I remember when I lived in Trinidad. I lived relatively close to the University of the West Indies,
okay.
and that's where these guys will actually train.
Hmm.
So they were, some of them will come from America, whatever the case may be, down to the Caribbean.
Right.
And then because at one time, the University of the West Indies was just that, was the only university in the West Indies, and it was in Trinidad, and it wasn't far from, it was less than a mile from where I lived.
Right.
So I saw a lot of these guys, when I was young, I'm like, wow, look, that guy is moving like a jet.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you like see these guys, moving fast as hell.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, there's been a lot of amazing athletes that come from out of Trinidad and Tobago that were Olympians, man. If
yeah.
not gold medal, they would be ranked in the top 5 worldwide all the time.
As a matter of fact, the announcer during the Summer Olympics, he's from Trinidad.
Yeah, yeah. He's
He's
an
from Trinidad.
interesting guy. He's an interesting guy. Are you talking about the tall guy who does the field, or the person who usually you hear on The Voice? Because I know the guy.
one that you hear on The Voice all the time. He's
Right,
The voiceover, he's from Trinidad.
Yeah, because he talks about his experience sometimes. I was like, that's cool, man. It's cool, and his knowledge base comes because he used to be a runner or something like that. I said, yo, that's cool. It's cool to see it, man. And the camaraderie.
Yeah.
I love the camaraderie.
Well, like I said, that university, when like I said, I lived not too far from there.
Mm-hmm.
And during the summertime, when we would have, like track and field, my school would actually go to that university, and that's where we would have the meet, the track meet,
Okay.
track and field. So I participated in that as a child growing up.
Mm.
At the University of the West Indies.
So you had wings when you were earlier, when you were younger? Okay.
Gold medal.
Hey, Bam. Gold medalist.
I was
Okay.
like 7, 8 years old, won a gold medal at the University of the West Indies in Trinidad.
Okay.
That was my very first accomplishment.
Yeah. I was told, I don't know how true it is, but I was told in Trinidad they had their own independent like Caribbean Olympics of the nations in the Caribbean, in the greater
Hmm.
Caribbean. They would have little forms of Olympics. It wasn't
Yeah, they do.
certain parts of it, and
Hmm.
Trinidad is like the location where the Summer Olympic concept would take place. Like some of them, the majority of them. I think Colombia was one dealing with, um, I forget exactly what, but I think it's just like one or two things in Colombia, but the majority of things are done in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah,
That's
they
all.
will have like say track meets.
Hmm.
Whereas some of the other countries will come down there and they will actually participate. And
And
that's pretty cool.
a big one too, right? From out here, it's like a 2 day track thing. It's a real big one. A lot
Yeah,
of.
and like I said, some of those concepts could be put into place even here in America. Among all of the states because you have a lot of championships, just like you have, the Super Bowl. You have the team from here and the team from here, and both of them get together.
Mhm.
No different from like schools, the high schools when they have some of these track meets or whatever the case may be, and then they end up having winning the South Jersey championship title or whatever.
Yeah, I think they have that something like that at the Penn Relays in Philly.
Yeah, Penn Relay, correct. I was there many years ago.
Yeah, I think there's a couple locations. I've
Yeah,
never really followed track and field. I enjoy watching track and field, especially Olympics. But the few I've seen, some of them are really major. And I know Penn Relays, at least in this area,
yeah, Penn Relay is big.
yeah,
Yeah.
the history and you have people, you have certain.
We have a few scouts and stuff. They're like, "Whoa, check that guy out! What school does he go to?" We'll
Hell
be
yeah,
talking to him relatively soon.
hell yeah, hell yeah.
I remember this one friend of mine. He was back in the 80s. Yeah, this guy was a freaking jet, man. I'm telling you. His name
Yeah.
was George Sapp, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. The freaking guy was fast as hell when it came down to track meet. And there weren't too many people that could beat this freaking guy, man. I'm serious.
Yeah, I believe
He
it.
was, yeah, he was good growing
It's
up.
it's amazing. It's like you see like the perfect formation when the people are running. You see how their body lines. It's beautiful. I mean, you see the human body in its utmost perfection work, and the amount of passion that the brothers and sisters put when they're running.
Mhm.
It's amazing. And I'm like, yo, these are amazing human beings, man. The speeds and
Yeah,
stuff.
when you're running track and field, there's a form that you have to follow so that you can
Oh,
cut
yeah.
the wind. And you just can't run regularly. There's a certain pattern that you have to follow.
Mhm.
And it's real weird. You have to try to get that formation, going before you could actually start flying like the wind.
Yeah. Then the reality that upper body strength is needed just as well as lower body strength.
Correct.
It took me a while to
Like
really
a
engage the
cheetah.
whole concept of being able to lunge yourself forward. That
Yeah,
helps
it's
you
like a
stay.
cheetah. When a cheetah runs, everything is from the upper body.
Yeah, yeah,
It's strong as hell.
yeah. Well, that's something. The Olympics have been around forever. Javelin throwers.
Hmm.
It's cool when you see certain things and you see like I said, I love the camaraderie amongst human beings. Competition is good, but I love when people look out for one another. I've seen a lot more long distance runners pick
I
up.
live for competition, man. I love that. It's like an adrenaline rush for me. Even
I,
growing up as a kid, growing up back in the day, it was an adrenaline rush.
I hear you. I hear you. I just I love the camaraderie. Like I said, when they push one another to be the most excellent
Hmm.
people that they possibly, it's great. It's when they're some you see somebody hurt and someone else comes in and tries to be helpful. To me, it just shows that if we are human beings. A lot of times in sports, people are pushed to their maximum capacity, their maximum intent, and we forget that they're human beings. We forget that they got families and whatever. So they go through some struggles, and when you hear about them stuff and how the struggles they go on and how they have to champion beyond all the stuff, it just makes them even more of an amazing human being. Some of the
Hmm.
hardships these people go. It's not all peaches and cream everywhere, man. It ain't. So
Well, like I said, life is a challenge, and you have to be up to the challenge. That's all it really is. When
mhm,
you get up every single morning, that's a challenge to you. That's the bottom line. Not everybody has the ability to wake up to the following day. You can plan for it, but that don't guarantee that you're going to make it into the following day. You can
absolutely.
plan. It's like this one guy actually have always wanted to hit the lottery, and when he hit the lottery finally, and like fantastic, he was so happy. He said, went to bed. and he never woke up the next day. So he hit the lottery and he checked out the same night.
That sucks. He accomplished
You
one
think?
thing, never got to enjoy it.
You think?
Yeah, that sucks.
You know what I'm saying? It's not a good way to go up because now your family is even more happy than you are.
Yeah, it's really sad, man. Um, there was one thing I wanted to make sure that we discussed tonight. The possibility of an African American woman at the Supreme Court, Justice, and their last name is Jackson. I was trying to make sure I didn't
Correct.
mispronounce her first name, but can you imagine, man, finally having a female African American woman being placed on the Supreme Court, man? How wonderful would that be? The symbolism.
Ironically enough, because even on WBLS when I was on there a few days ago with those guys, they said, Barack Obama did 2 terms. And during the 2-term period, he never elected a black woman to be on the Supreme Court.
I know. He only had what, one? Was it one?
No, he put a Hispanic, on there.
So Sotomayor, right?
Sotomayor, correct.
Right.
But they have overlooked black women for many years. So it takes Sleepy Joe Biden to come along to actually, but behind Joe Biden is the congressman from South Carolina. He's the one that's actually pressing all Joe Biden's buttons. Clyburn from
Right.
South Carolina. He's
That's
the man behind Joe Biden, to tell you the truth.
That's something, man. That's something. That says something.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
that's some power as hell.
yeah, the majority of people don't really pay attention to the chain of command or the chain of
He
how.
told Joe Biden, pick a female vice president. Joe Biden would have picked Kamala Harris. He said, go ahead and pick a female. You want to get black people on your side again? Go ahead and pick a black female, Supreme Court justice. You'll bring a lot of people on board with you again. And so
Yeah.
this is what has been happening.
I think there might have been probably would have stirred up a conflict because
Well, right now, they were talking tonight on the news with Mitch McConnell, the Grim Reaper. He just says, at one time he was all in favor of this lady, but now he's talking her down. But this is that she will be more like she will be nominated to sit on the Supreme Court, but by a very narrow margin.
mm,
Very narrow margin.
that's sad. With dominance being with the Democrats, that a narrow margin of people will vote for. That's sad.
Yeah. You remember, everything is 50-50,
Yeah.
when it comes down to these guys. And Kamala Harris is the one that breaks the tie over and over.
Mhm.
And so that's a narrow margin by itself.
Yeah, but I guess it won't even matter if she wins by one. That's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter how big how big or little the win is. A win is a win.
Yeah,
And that's just the bottom line. So
Yeah.
maybe she'll be able to team up with Sotomayor and actually go against, Kavanaugh and the other one that Donald Trump put on there.
yeah, exactly. Go toe to toe. Finally, somebody is liberal.
Exactly. But I also think that, they should also put another black brother on there because, you have, what's that? Clarence Thomas. He is not, he's not it.
He's not. Yeah, he's
He's not it.
the best decision. There's a lot of them that you would think were. I guess to me, probably the best ones outside of Sotomayor now because she's proven to be really good. Would be Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She's probably one of the justices historically that made sense to me. Thurgood Marshall, when he was Roma in the Supreme Court, he did so much work that was positive to the community of color.
Mm-hmm.
But not many. You don't see too
But at
many.
the same time, like I said, Joe Biden has the, and even, this one attorney I was listening to, she said the same thing. Joe Biden should pack the damn court because Donald Trump didn't have no problem putting those 2 people on there.
We talked about that exactly. We both believe the same thing. Why not?
Yeah. Come on. And that's the thing about the Democrats and the Republicans. The Democrats wait for approval. The Republicans take the damn approval. You know what I'm saying? They take the bull by the horn. They say, to hell what you think and what everybody else think. We're just going to do what we know is right.
You hit it right on. That was the theory that somebody had presented to me before. Conservative Republicans will act and will work on an apology. Democrats wait until they get ahead of time.
They look for approval. They look around and say, is there anybody in the room that will approve exactly what we're doing? Come on, be for real. We voted you up there. Do the damn job. That's it.
And I think we need it nowadays more than ever because there's so much still on the line.
Yeah.
Voting rights acts now with a lot of things coming in from people or immigration laws, stuff like that. even the industry, the way they made companies considered like human beings type stuff. I said all this stuff. We need as many people in there, or at
Well,
least
you
bring
know the
some
thing about that,
balance.
Mo? I'm gonna put you. I want to put you down a legal path here for a second because you said making companies a person and a human being
Hmm.
that could serve to your benefit, but a lot of people don't even know it. And I'll explain to you how.
Great.
Okay, say if okay, you're a person. You have your identity, your social security card, and the whole nine yards. You have your number.
Hmm.
Yes, fine, fantastic. You create a company, which is totally separate entity from you.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, say if you somebody sues you, and I'm just so hypothetical,
Right.
you end up with a large debt, whatever the case may be.
Right.
You could actually have that company, who's another person, purchase that debt from you and actually relieve you of that debt, and it would be totally legal. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because it has its own identity. There it is again. You don't think about it. I looked into that and I figured out
No,
exactly how the transition would actually happen. Because dealing in foreclosures and stuff, I know some of these people end up with a high debt load, and how to actually relieve them legally of that debt load, and that would be a very interesting move. But there's certain ramification and certain thin lines that you must follow very carefully that you don't screw it up, because if you screw it up, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass.
mhm. I totally hear what you're saying, and I can see where that benefits is. It's clear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's. I think it's only to me questionable when the discussions are about moral issues.
You know the thing about it, you know, I've seen a lot of wealthy people.
Hmm.
They've hid a lot of their wealth. They've gotten rid of a lot of their wealth. They use the law to their advantage, and that's some of these things. But we, as commoners and people down here, we always think about the ramification. What if? And that's what holds us back the most. We always think about what if, just like the Democrats. What if the Republicans just do the damn thing? We're like, what if
Yeah.
I was to do it and it doesn't, happen, or if I fail at it, and you start thinking negative from the get go.
Yeah.
We don't just do it, and then that's the problem that I come to find out that a lot of us have. We're procrastinators, and then second, we doubt ourselves. You
Yeah.
see what I'm saying? And this is one of the main reasons why I put this up on my wall also. To I don't know if you can see it. Let me slide it the other direction.
Never give up. You never know how close you are. Right.
Exactly,
Hmm.
because a lot of us give up even before we start trying.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's exactly what I mean.
Hmm. Absolutely.
A lot of us give up. What if? But what if you succeed? And even Jerry Seinfeld said the same thing. He said a lot of people don't become successful simply because they give up before they even begin to start trying. They start doubting themselves ahead of time.
Yeah.
So they end up talking themselves out of being successful.
I totally understand what you're saying. That seems to be an argument I seem to come across on my loved ones all the time.
Yeah,
Hypothetically think failure, hypothetically the
hypothetical, correct.
worst fears, and it
Because
grows
we've been
within us so much.
programmed that way. We've been programmed that way, and we can't get it. We've been programmed to work for other people because that's the only way we could actually succeed. We were
Yeah,
never told to actually work for ourselves.
right.
And when we try to work for ourselves, somebody in our family member will try to talk us out of it.
It's a sabotage, right? Exactly. Yep. It,
They're like fall in line, because that's one of the main reasons why with me I've encountered that in my own family structure. They're like, yo, Adrian, I think you shouldn't do this, and you should. I don't care what you think, or I should or should not do, because
right.
at the end of the day, you're not putting out any money. I am.
Right. If
I
it
was
is mine.
I met this young lady today, and she says, I know you. And I'm like saying, okay, who are you? She says, I purchased a pager from you years ago when you had a store in Pleasantville. You own the store, right? A cell phone. So I'm like, yeah. I'm like, wow, yes, sir, you got a freaking good ass memory, because
Right.
I don't even remember you, but you remember me, like, out of, and I had a mask on, and she still remembered me.
Lasting impression. Okay.
Yeah. And
That's
it
good.
was like really bizarre, I told her, I said, you got a pretty damn good memory, young lady, no doubt. But like I said, we talk ourselves out of success.
Oh,
And that's the reason why a lot of us don't become successful, because we,
absolutely.
we have the what if, and we don't want to try. You
Yeah.
know,
Yep.
there's nothing that beats, a failure than a try.
Absolutely. I was thinking the same concept, same term. And that's absolutely true. And we talk about this all the time. It's for poverty mindset, fear mindset, all those two factors. We seem to manifest always in the negative and not enough in the positive. We're always talking about what we can't do, but we never really designate what we can do. And we're so fearful of the barriers that the barriers grow larger in our minds than the actual successes.
Yeah, here goes a perfect example. I've seen, on television where some of these white parents will take their kid and their child and throw them in the water for them to start swimming.
Sink or swim.
Have you seen that? And then the kid will start swimming like crazy.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Sink or swim. I saw that in the beginning. I don't know. It was a controversial birth method. Like they
Yeah,
were
right.
taking kids right after birth, shortly after they were born, and putting them right in the water,
And important, correct, and get them to start swimming.
swimming.
And miraculously, some of them end up being Olympic champions. You know what I'm saying? But we who live around water, the majority of our lives, this is the majority of the people that live around water, a body of water, don't know how to
Don't know how to swim.
swim.
Don't know how to swim. Exactly.
Don't know how to swim.
Exactly.
I lived on the island of Trinidad, and I did not know how to swim until I came to the United States. And no one actually taught me to swim. I had to go to the beach by myself and my friends, and that's how I learned how to swim.
Hmm. That seems to be a dysfunction in a lot of us about
Yeah,
the different things. Just like we were saying before in another discussion, my wife and I were talking about how people that live here don't necessarily go on the boardwalk. They don't spend time on the boardwalk. They don't do much on the boardwalk, but we live
right.
right here. So I don't know if it's proximity has something to do with it. Like it doesn't necessarily encourage us more when things are so close. That's like working. If you work next door to somebody to a building, you live right next door to the building you work on. 90% of the time, you will be late because you don't think you think because of proximity you'll get there in time and never get there on time. You'll see people being late, but in a situation where you may live 10 miles away, it's going to take on most of the time. You'll be there early.
You see, what the people in Philadelphia, there's no beaches there.
Right.
Okay, so the first thing when it gets hot as hell, they make sure that they have a car or their friend have a car. And what's the first thing they say? Let's go down to Cape May. Let's go down to the Jersey Shore. Let's go somewhere where there's a beach that we could actually relax and eat, drink, and be merry.
Right.
Because they live in concrete jungle. But we live by the beach, and like you said, a lot of us, periodically we'll go up to the beach,
Right.
and walk on the boardwalk or whatever the case may be. But those are assets right here, laid at our feet, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I think sometimes again we talking about proximity. You know what I'm saying? Whether stuff is ready and available,
Correct.
whether we do something, that's crazy.
Because in the summertime, what they call them, the shoebies. All of them, come down to the
Hell yeah.
Jersey Shore, the whole 9 yards.
Hell yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
living.
and some of the people that live inland, when they don't have this one lady I spoke to not long ago, she's like, "This is my first time coming down to Atlantic City and seeing the water, my daughter and I." And she's like, "It's so beautiful and seeing the seagulls. We've heard about these things,
Right.
but
Right.
we've
Right.
never seen it in person.
Right. Things we see all the time. We never really.
We never appreciate it."
Yeah. Like living next to the sea. How many people fish? Probably small percentage of people fish.
Yeah. But like I said, a lot of people that live on the islands don't know how to swim.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. You live around a body of water, but you grow up around it, but you still don't know how to swim.
Yeah. Very much so. Which segues that I want to highlight something because we are in the last days of Black History Month here. But I wanted to bring notice to a Black history, an icon, I would say, for Atlantic City, someone who meant a lot to the African American community, who should mean a lot to the entire community. If it wasn't for James L. Ushery, who used to be the mayor, was the superintendent of schools for a long time, and his decision in hopes to protect our children because he found a lot of inner city school kids were drowning because of possibly the same discussion that we just had earlier. We live on an island, Barrier Island. You would think everyone swims. No, not really. So, in hopes to protect more of our children from drowning, he created and supported the idea of having swimming as taught in schools as a regular thing,
Correct.
regular program, more of it. So, if it
Correct.
wasn't for him, a lot of people wouldn't have had the opportunity of learning how to swim in Atlantic City. So, I wanted to make mention for Black history, and not everybody's history here in Atlantic City and around. It was JML's actually Big Jim.
Yeah,
Reason why a lot of people could swim.
yeah. Because I remember when they actually built West Side Complex,
Mhm.
and they had the pool inside of there back in the day, and they're like, "Wow, that freaking thing's got a pool inside of it." We were all blown away. A school with a pool in it. Imagine that. You know what I'm saying? At West
Everybody
Side
was in there.
Complex.
Yep.
And then everybody, were going across there. And I've swum in that pool many times growing up
Right.
as a kid.
Right.
Going across the West Side Complex. And then they came up with skating. So we have the pool over here, and then they converted the gymnasium into a skating ring. So we'll
Loved
go
it.
over to West Side Complex and actually skate in the gym.
Loved
And
it.
then came Uptown Complex.
Yep.
And that's when that was happening also.
I
It was a
remember.
good family oriented type situation
Yeah.
that a lot of people, because if the kids have something to do to occupy their time, they won't be getting in trouble. That's just the bottom line. It's the thinking.
Yeah.
You have to keep them occupied because, an idle mind is the devil's workshop.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. I remember when Madison Avenue School, or Madison Avenue at that time, had those huge hills. This was before the Uptown School was built. That
I
was
know.
like the location, those big red sand hills.
Yes. Yeah.
Everybody grabbed their bike, was riding up and
Okay,
down.
here goes a quiz for you. What was located across the street from there? Let me see how good you were.
Shabazz.
Exactly, in the bean pie.
Right.
The
Right.
bean pie, exactly.
The big church in the corner, was that St. James? I forget the name of the big church. But I
Yeah,
remember Shabazz. That was the best
yeah,
cheesesteak location with bean pies
the
that
bean
I
pies,
thought enticing
exactly.
at the time.
Yeah.
Shabazz. Yep. I'd get my Frank's soda. I'd get a cheese. I'd get the Frank's cookies, the little pack of cookies. And that was the location I would go to. I remember
Yeah, yeah.
that
We
was the
used to
whole.
hang out right there.
Yeah. But you mentioned the MLK, MLK school was. I remember the pool was widely used, and they had summer beach parties, pool parties there, like
Hmm.
every week, at least 2 or 3, and everybody had a great time.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how many people actually learned how to swim, in opposed to just being there splashing water around.
Well, I enjoyed it.
I love
When they have, I believe it was Thursday nights.
it. Hmm.
My friends and I would get together. We ride our bikes up there or walk over there, and we
Right.
hop inside the pool. That's the first time I ever dove off a diving board. It was at Westside Complex. I got up there, man, and I hit that diving board, and it shot me into the air. Like, what the hell did I just do?
You talking about off the high dive?
Exactly. Yeah, I just went
Woo!
straight into the air. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell did I just do?
You look at it from the
You know
ground,
what
you're like,
I'm
ain't that tall, ain't that high.
saying?
You're like, oh my
Yeah.
god, what did I just do?
Ever since that moment, I said, I'll just stay here and just run and dive into the pool, and I'll call it a day. I ain't hitting that diving board anymore. I've never touched another diving board ever since that time.
I did that diving board twice. One, I went up there and was like, all right, let me just run and jump off. It was higher than I thought it was. The second time I said, let me just, try to put my mind. It's form. You have to go out there, lean forward and so on and so forth. Boy, did that leave a mark on my back. That's the last time I ever got up on that high dive. That
Man,
was
shoot, that's the last time I touched a diving board. That's it. It was a wrap after that.
yeah, you know, you would see people use the diving board and they do these amazing
Yeah,
tricks, flips, and so forth. You'd be like, wow, that looks fun. Boy, that's okay.
yeah, but we see the fun part. But remember, when practicing these sports and stuff, you
Yeah,
don't see the failure because you have to fail first before you succeed in life. That's just the way it is. You know how many
absolutely.
people have dove off and probably hit the damn diving board?
Oh,
You'll never see that. But you
oh,
see the perfect form when they cut the water and you barely see a splash. You'll see all these fancy things, but you will never see the bad things, obviously.
you
But you
remind
have
me.
to fail before you succeed because practice makes perfect.
You remind me of that time. I think it was Greg Louganis that did that inboard flip and cut his head on the platform itself. A big gash when he landed in the water. They had to like clean out the water before the next one. He had a big gash,
Wow.
gold medal at that time. I was like, yeah, hell yeah. You can only imagine the type of pain that was involved in that one.
Yeah,
But
it's serious,
yeah,
especially when you hit your head or something like that. I mean, that's concussion right there.
yeah. Well, it's the end of February. We're looking at it's the 25th day of February, and I thought earlier on this is a segue to something else I wanted to bring up to the table. Black History Month. Why does it seem, and this is just my perception, that it's not much emphasis in celebrating our heroes or our iconic individuals from our history as it used to be? Is it because there's so much going on right now with the pandemic and the other issues, finances, that life is getting in the way, or are we not having the same passion it once was? I don't know.
I was watching a certain portion of The View, and
Uh
they actually highlight Black History Month. People who made history.
Right.
And I never knew this, and so did Whoopi Goldberg. She like, I never knew this. A lot of the architectural structures around the United States was created by a black man. I never knew that.
Okay. I believe it.
Like the Hollywood Hotel, and some of the Grand Central Stations. All of these things was created by a black man, but at
Right.
the same time, they would not even let him into some of these places, even though
He
that
could.
he
Right.
created.
Go in. Right.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I touched on some of that concept earlier with our military, African American soldiers that went abroad, and then when they come back in, they weren't treated like dirt. They couldn't even go in. They protected
Correct.
everyone, but couldn't even get a meal on this side of the planet. It's really sad.
It's, it's just like the first black man that actually went cross country, nonstop, from coast to coast, nonstop on a plane. You know, first black man that did it. But believe it or not, that guy was from Trinidad.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I just saw a movie called Uncharted the other day, and it talked off the basis of a voyage that Magellan made across the world. Right, he was the first one that went around
Mhm.
on the planet. A lot of history books suggest that is, but the reality was is that he died on the way. The man who actually finished it was name is Baptiste. Baptiste was an African slave that took on as his first mate. He's the one that finished the whole thing. So think about the African slave who was given an Italian name or name that was, who took part in this whole voyage, who actually finished it. I think two-thirds of the length of this journey around the world, he Magellan was sickly, almost in his deathbed. So this man took over and got everyone, all over and went actually around the world. That's an amazing feat, man. That's an amazing feat.
Yeah, but even if you go back to during the Roman Empire and the fall of the Roman Empire, the person that actually brought that empire down was a black lady. They said, but they never really mentioned her in any of the books. There's certain parts of the history books that just don't mention it.
Okay.
And she
So
was from Africa, yeah, from
I-
Egypt and the African, yeah,
I'd be interested in looking into that, man, because that's great
yeah,
history. That's great
yeah.
history.
It blew me away.
hmm Great history. The more and more, I guess, the more and more we're realistic about what we're looking at, the more we get more vivid clarity on some things in history. We participated. People of color have participated in everything on the planet.
Yeah.
There's no way with hell we haven't championed or started or become the first of this and first of that. And great endeavors, man, great endeavors. The light bulb, that was us.
Hmm.
The phone, actually, us and assistants. We're actually part of the reason why we have a phone. Cell phone, elevators, um,
Yeah.
the crazy
Fire
thing.
hydrants, the whole nine
Zero.
yards. The
Yep. Yep.
straightening comb, the traffic light, the refrigerator.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on and on.
Yep. I just saw something just recently that I never knew, never really considered. And I'm trying to remember the technologies. There's a specific technology used in cell phones um, that created the ability to use cell phones. And to this day, some cell phones still use the technology. And it was by African Americans just stumbled and was tinkering with things with tin or aluminum, tinkering. And he was able to utilize this technology later on that was being used in
Hmm.
microwave technology and using cell phones. I was like, that's cool, man. Nobody would know that. It was a man tinkering. This is another one like George
Well, that's
Washington.
how, because necessity is the father of inventions.
Amen.
And that's the bottom line. When you have the tinkering with things, that's how you find out how things work, or you just need to invent something. That's
Ab-
all it really boils down to, how it works, or if it's not around, you need to invent it.
Absolutely.
It's like the windshield wiper. The remote control. How you have the delay. The windshield wiper delay was by a black man. But he worked for GM, and GM is like, no, you work for us. This is our technology because we're paying you, so we're gonna seize on this. And they tried to take it away. He turned around, he quit, sued them the whole nine yards, and eventually they had to pay him.
Yeah.
You the windshield wiper delay.
Yeah.
Because if not, everybody be walking around with a freaking windshield wiper flapping on, without,
Not,
without the delay. I
you know,
remember that on some of the older model cars. My car had that. I said, this is some bullshit.
it's just
I
off
went,
and on.
yeah, exactly. Only two off and on. That's it.
That's it.
So I went and bought a windshield wiper delay and actually installed it into my windshield wiper. And then before you know it, I had it going on.
There you go. There you go. Not have to worry about that on and off shit. Yep.
Exactly. It was a separate switch, but it worked.
Yeah. I remember them days. But
Yeah.
it just goes to show you, it depends on what you look at. There's always been some hands from different parts of the world with African origins that have been involved in different parts of the world, whether it's naval activity, medical, technology, sports. I mean, we see it all the time. We should continue to commemorate and celebrate these individuals because, it's when we forget about them that we forget who we are, identity wise. We should all be very proud of their achievements and not just here in America. We're talking about worldwide, worldwide, because there's
Yeah.
so much important involvement of Africans, of the descendants of Africans that people have been involved in. I saw John Paul, not John Paul Gaultier, um, man from the Fugees. I forget his name. I can't recall his name right
Um,
now. He's Haitian. He was emphasizing to the world some of the truths about Africans in Haiti, and he was talking about again the first revolt, Haiti being the first independent African nation or nation of African people on this side of the world, which was something that needed to be remembered. Another discussion was about the African slave that had his own kingdom in Colombia during the time shortly after slavery, who freed his slaves and fought, and he was able to create his own nation in and out Colombia. Boio, I think was his name. A lot of people wouldn't know that. A lot of people wouldn't know that a lot of Africans who basically freed themselves through slavery went to Guatemala and created their own region, Guatemala and Lower Mexico out of Oaxaca. And these are Africans. You can question dark complected individuals are still there, and people embrace them. Like the science behind the truth of Mexico, stating that any person of color, Africans, who go into Mexico running away from slavery are free, will not be returned to America, will not be
correct. I
returned to,
remember that.
right, and protective of it. But then in modern days, you have so much adversity between African Americans and Mexican Americans off the border of Mexico. There's a lot of bitterness over there. But if we talk about the nation of Mexico, supported Africans being slave and independent, and even embraced Africans being part of the culture. There's so much more to history that should be learned by
Yeah,
us.
yeah, exactly. Because it seemed like the history books, so it was a one-sided book.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that's what it really
history.
boils. Yeah, exactly. It was a
Right.
one-sided book.
Right.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Because I just come to find out down in Mississippi many years ago, and I just found it out this week that the people, not the governing body of Mississippi, way back in the day, tried to pass a law that all Black African Americans, they were trying to see if they could get some money together to ship these people back to Africa.
Mm.
They tried to pass a law like that down in Mississippi. I said, get the hell out of here. That was left out. There's some, what I'm saying? That would be an expensive bill. But then again, if you look at it by today's standard, all of the free labor that Uncle Sam has received from African Americans over the years, there is no possible way that they could actually pay their debt off to African Americans.
I
But
think that's
they
why.
did it with the Japanese. They did it with the Japanese because when they put them in concentration camps and the whole 9 yards, they paid each and every single one of them $20,000
Yeah,
for their ancestors being held, in concentration camps, better known as a camp endowment or whatever the hell you want to call it,
right.
here in the United States.
I think that's probably one of the largest reasons, main reasons why there's so much denial when talking about reparation. Because if you were actually considered, we're talking about numbers beyond our understanding and scope right now. We're talking about trillions, if not more,
Yeah,
money
exactly.
that would have to be paid out and to the descendants. Because every wealthy company, every wealthy American that can say it originated as wealth here in America came from slave labor.
Yep.
Everyone, everyone. I mean, later on, you had independent companies that had nothing to do with slavery, because of people's hardship and their development. Yeah, you can't touch those. But the ones with the longest existence here in America, more times than least, were associated with slavery, which got free slave labor.
I will tell you something. I watched a story earlier tonight on NBC. I'm going to find the story and I'm going to ship it to you. It was very nice too, because in inner city of Chicago, there were 5 schools, and this one man who just so happened to be a multimillionaire, who so happened to be white also, and he says a lot of kids never really, got the advantage to go to college, from the inner cities. So what he's actually done was for all 5 schools, those kids, he's going to pay the entire way straight through college, and an additional family member of their family who wants to go to college, they will send them to college free of charge. And he's a multimillionaire. He says, I'll pick up the whole entire bill for everything.
That's awesome.
Those kids were in awe. They were jumping, screaming,
That's
crying,
awesome.
the whole 9 yards. You know what I'm saying? That's what it's about.
Yeah, it is. I wonder if the Promise School still does that. When LeBron James opened up, him and his family opened up the Promise School outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, outside of Cleveland. I'm sorry, in Akron, Ohio. One of the premises is they made sure that they had at least a 98, 99% recidivism rate that will guarantee once they graduate, they're guaranteed to go to college. And for the first few years, they had 100% participation. Graduates of that school went directly to college, and then they had full scholarships, full rides. I wonder if that continued, because I know at one time the question was because of the endowment's limitations, they couldn't do everything. But I don't think it stopped people from getting other scholarships always. But it was pretty fly, man, to hear. And these academies were, the Promise Academy was really targeting on inner city schools, but they had to have the lottery program. Matter of fact, also had that in Harlem, the Harlem School, with, I want to say his name was Kennedy. It's a black man who was the actual originator of the Harlem School and the KIPP School program. Those both programs had the same type of things, and they were funneling funds and making sure that 100% of their graduates went to college, and they did it. I know the Harlem School was a storefront school. It wasn't that big, but it was like a waiting list that was maybe 10 years deep. And this KIPP School program, which started, I want to say, in California, and it was based off of music. 2 white kids learned a promise of teaching kids using music and sound from an African American teacher of a first grade class, and develop a whole program that got really successful. It was KIPP, KIPP. And their process ended up with kids wanting to go to college, and they funded the program that kids went to college. It was so much success, man.
I think it's something like that in Atlantic City with the casinos and stuff. Have a college fund for the kids in school to go to college,
Yeah.
After they graduate from high school, because someone could come back into the community and do wonders.
You would think that makes sense, right? It's logical,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Because look at the lottery. After all, when you play the lottery, a lot of the money goes to the state, and the state passes it over to seniors.
Yeah. At least they say so, right?
Correct. You know what I'm saying? That's
Right.
what they say.
Right.
But they have their hands in their pocket any damn way.
Oh,
One for
absolutely.
you and 2 for me type of deal.
Absolutely. It's sad. If we had more funding available for children to go to college, would they go to college? I don't know. I think they probably would.
They will, because there will be, and especially if you nurture them in the right way and you show them the way, they would. Because at the end of, come on, down on Albany Avenue, where Atlantic City High School sat at one time, you have Stockton College, Stockton University now.
Mhm.
So there is one right there that they could actually, the people from Atlantic City could actually go to these places. It's right there in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
And they could come right back and teach, right here in Atlantic City, and promote the community and build up the community that way. So you're reinvesting back into the community, being a part of the community. It's a circle.
Right. A productive evolution, an ecosystem
It's a
constantly
circle.
feeds
Yeah, exactly.
feeds
It's a
itself.
circle.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. It just makes sense, man. I think with so much hoopla about making a dollar, people forgot know how to make sense. You know?
You can say that again.
Yeah. But we'll see, man. But listen, I just wanted to emphasize a little bit more, if possible, about the framework of Black History Month. Now in closing, like I said, because I don't see it as often, and I'm just going to say by circumstances, only because of the way the pandemic is, and the economy and the threats and stuff that we are. But I just want to emphasize it's extremely important that we make sure we keep the fire glowing, leading the way by remembering and honoring those who fought, died, worked hard to ensure that we had what we have now, and not the hardships that they have. And some of the people, they're so unsung. Their stories are unsung. Some of them we hear it all the time. We always hear about Malcolm X. We always hear about Martin Luther King. And lately, it was funny as hell. I don't know if you saw it. There was, I think it was news this week on HBO. The English guy made fun of something. How the Republicans all, in talking about critical race theory, revert back to Martin Luther King. And he said it was like 50 or 60 people. He showed clips of everyone utilizing Martin Luther King and their interpretation of what Martin Luther King was saying about critical race theory. And at the very end, he showed a clip of what something wasn't important. It was an interview that Martin Luther King had made. He said he erred in his thinking about little boys and girls going to school together to do this and that because we don't have the equality, the equity's not there. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. That's a trip. But how everyone wants to relate to Martin Luther King. So I'm just saying this, that there's more to the story. Black experience here in America and worldwide is more to the story. And the more and more we dive into trying to find the facts, the more we realize how illustrious it is and how more expanding it is. There's more and more individuals that are involved that are of African descent. Not only African descent, as our allies also helped us along the way to get to where we are. So if we pay homage and respects to everyone like that, then maybe we'd have a little bit more respect for one another. Maybe we get along more. Maybe we can understand that there's greatness. Just like my brother Adrian is consistently showing greatness into the community by what he does. You yourself out there, you could be doing the small things that you can possibly do to be great also. And that can inspire greatness with the kids, greatness with the seniors, giving them homage. I want to pay my respects to a man, John Paxton, who was a mailman here in the city, but he did it with so much pride that he was included to be a family member to many in Atlantic City. Everyone looked at him, Big John, as being part of the family because he always promoted himself as a family member, as a community member. Well, he recently just passed away. So I want to make sure I pay homage to John Paxton and his essence of his family and legacy. And his legacy continues to live in all of us who's he came in contact with. But I just wanted to say my spiel for that because I know it's really important that it's important that we continue to do that. Give homage where homage is due, give respect where respect's due. I want to give you an opportunity if you'd like to, because I know we're right now over our time. Yeah, if there's anyone you'd like to bring some light to, please do so.
Well, not in particular. I think you pretty much said it all, because you have to give people, their props before their heartbeat drops. And there's a lot of people that's still walking around here on this planet Earth that are very well known, famous, wise, and they walk among us.
Yeah.
And we don't know that. God even said it in the Word. You have angels that walks among us. We don't know. And that's what needs to be done. Respect each other and respect the people that you're around. That's all that's required. It isn't much. Like somebody says, you don't have to like me, but just respect me. And that's what it really boils down to.
Absolutely, man. That's the most important. We have to respect is something that seems to be premium these days.
Exactly.
And that's true. And that's why I said, no matter what is on, I say this with all reverence. I love and respect you, my brother, for who you are, what you are, and what you stand for always. And there's value in everything, and we always have to make sure that we give with flowers while we're alive.
Exactly.
The very next day, you never know what happens. We see it too often. People die from last minute. You never get a chance to say something to someone.
Absolutely right.
Authentic truths to someone. So.
I want to share those because you probably saw my pictures a few days ago. I went to the show at Hard Rock.
Mm-hmm.
The Whispers, the Stylistics, Stephanie Mills, and before these performers came on, even the Whispers, because the guy Scotty, he suffered from, as a matter of fact, he caught COVID. And COVID, he almost died from COVID. That's what his brother was saying and I went to the concert, for the Whispers. Hey Scotty, you remember that guy? What does that mean? The Whispers like, well known. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows the Whispers. A lot of kids were born to the Whispers.
Yeah, the
That's just
twins.
that they don't know it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Why,
the twins.
why do I like that song so much? Maybe because that's how you was born. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
You know, the Whispers. You know, but like he says, you know, if you have a beef with someone, you know, try to mend those broken fences. You know, try to appreciate those people. You
Mhm.
know, I've done that recently with my family members. You know, I mean, there was a lot of discord going on here and there and everywhere, but we were able to actually pull. I was able to pull them together. You know, and be that thread in between. You know, because like you saw the picture of my one of my sisters from Las Vegas and the
Mhm.
other one from, Long Island.
Right.
That was a daring feat to pull that whole thing together without nobody knowing. You know,
Imagine.
I was on the phone back and forth saying, no, come over here, come over here. And the other one like, I don't know, I want to leave, I want to leave. And then eventually they were all under one roof. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, holy smoke, I pulled it off. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And that was just last year. You know, so the bottom line is, like I said, you have to appreciate your family. And I know you've lost some loved ones also,
Yeah.
recently, and so have I, so we have to appreciate each other because we don't know when we're going to leave. And you can't leave this earth, having animosity on your heart. There's no damn way you should. That's
Absolutely.
just the bottom line.
Absolutely.
I mean, at the end of the day, that's all petty bullshit. Leave it alone. Let it
Absolutely.
fly. Give it to God. That's just the bottom line.
Absolutely. Absolutely, brother. And during these trying times where you have shit that's stirring up in other parts of the planet, you never know.
You
What
never
can trigger.
freaking know.
Never know.
You might go to bed tonight and you might hate somebody or dislike somebody, or whatever the case, and you're not going to make it the following day to say, I'm sorry.
Yep.
It's just that simple. It's
That is
just that simple. You never made it through the night to say, I'm sorry.
very, very true, man.
I've seen loved ones walk out the door and like, oh yeah, my wife and I, we had an argument today and we walk out the door and then he never comes back.
Yep.
Now she's walking around this earth. It's like, damn, I never even say I loved you or care for you or whatever the case may be.
Right.
People just have this petty nonsense at the end of the day. It's all pride and ego. That's what it really boils down to. Nothing short or shy of it. Pride and ego.
Exactly.
You
And
know,
it's a
humble
human trait.
yourself. Humble
Yeah.
yourself. That's just all it takes. Humble yourself.
Yeah.
If you
Humility.
know that, if you know you're in a bad situation, just work to try to get yourself out of the situation. You don't have to be bitter. You don't have to be bitter because bitter just shows that you're still carrying around the baggage from what has transpired against you. That's all it really is.
Yeah. Absolutely, brother. That's wisdom right there. Baggage is something that could be harmful. It's like anything else, man. We're all swimming in this pool of called life. You carrying a baggage, it makes it even heavier. It gives
Yeah,
you
it
more.
makes the journey harder. It makes
Yeah.
the journey very hard.
Yeah. Makes
Leave
your
it
life.
alone, man.
Yeah.
The people who lives the longest are the ones who are more happy.
Hell yeah.
Steve Harvey said that this past week. He says, the bottom line is, he says, I don't give a damn about what anybody say or think of me because I'm living my best life, and that's what you should be doing, living your best life.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Don't try to live up to anybody else's expectations. You know, carve your own piece of the planet.
Yep.
Carve your own. That's what you got to do. Mold your own. Don't live up to anyone else's. I mean, this week, with me, it was phenomenal. Because like I said, I put up my resume out there, and all of these people started calling me like crazy. I was like the man on the block.
Yeah.
All of the top casinos around here started calling my phone like crazy.
I wasn't.
So I'm like, huh?
I wasn't expecting you to be on because I knew you. Somebody was going to pick you up, so I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, everybody kept saying that to me. You know what I'm saying? They said, Adrian, you won't be long on that market. I had a call from Hard Rock the day before yesterday. I had a call from Evolution, which actually runs all of the freaking, gaming like FanDuel and all of those guys, the virtual dealers and stuff.
Oh
They
yeah,
run
yeah.
all
Okay.
of that. They run. I saw the whole setup this week, Mo. The guy took me behind the scene, and I saw the whole. I'm like, damn, look at all this thing is set up
Mhm.
right inside of inside of Hard Rock. I was inside of there walking around, and he was the top guy.
Someone
And
just gave me that scoop. They said Harrah's in that company. Harrah's is the better paying chapter of that company. Like they
see
get
what?
20. Yeah, some weird stuff. But each one that does the virtual gaming, each house is a little different. Like I think the choke rate. I think that's what the difference is. The choke rate at Harrah seems to be the most. I was like, really?
Nah,
Okay.
nah. If
No.
you're looking at the toke rate, normally replies to dealers, and if
Right.
you're looking at it from that standpoint, the top casinos, Ocean, not necessarily in order, but Ocean, you have Hard Rock, and you have the Borgata.
Right.
Those are the
But,
top three houses right there.
but the
Now when it comes down to talk rates,
uh,
on the virtual end of things, Golden Nugget have their own separate, virtual dealers.
okay. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I didn't
Yeah,
know if
they have their
virtual.
own separate.
I didn't know if virtual dealers go through the same thing, have the same type of pay
No,
structure.
no, here goes the difference between the two. The
Okay.
virtual dealers pretend that they deal.
Right.
Okay, they pretend that they deal. I
Right.
know because I was just inside of the whole setup and the whole 9 yards, and
Right.
he was giving me the rundown. But then you have the actual dealers on the floor who've been there for forever, because this year making like 40 years I've had my license, and that's a freaking milestone. So these guys said they look at me like, yo, you got loaned something that long? You know what I'm saying? Even the guy from the Borgata said that to me last night. But you have the dealers who don't. The virtual dealers handle no chips, no money, nothing. But then you have the real dealers who you have to know how to shuffle the cards, you have to know how to cut the chips, you have to know everything mental. So
Right.
it's a very mental and physical thing with the regular dealers than the virtual dealers. The virtual dealers, there are chips built into the cards, and when they lay the cards down, the camera picks up the cards and it passes it through the computer that actually tabulates the number and everything on those cards.
Okay.
So everything is computerized and digitized.
That's cool. So you say the name of that company is Evolution?
Evolution, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a lot of positions open because they're like, Adrian, whatever you want, just let us know. We'll give it to you. If you want swing shift, if you want day shift, if you want, full time, if you want part time, they're like, just let us know, because like the experience that you have is like, we can't touch it. And
See.
so they're like, whatever you want to do, just let us know. You go to a young lady, she's like, I'd like to see you shuffle a deck of cards. I say, really? I'm like, okay, let me show you. After I showed her, she's like, let me put this thing away. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to continue on with you. You know what I'm saying?
Excellence.
Huh?
Excellence executed. Okay, good.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing at the Hard Rock. The guy's like, I think we're gonna put you on again. I said, really, dude? I'm like, look, I've been doing this for like ever. And he's like, like we just wasted my time and your time. You know what I'm saying? He's like, something. Let's just forget about that. That's what they all tell me. I'm
Okay.
like, let's just forget about it. We don't need to go down that road. I'm like, no, because it's just wasting my time.
Right.
But like I said, once again, you have to respect other people for what they've been through and what they've gone through to make them who they are today. And that's what it's all about. Respect.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So, in closing, any more wisdom you want to impart on anyone?
Just like I said, it's appreciate each other, man. I'm telling you, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you still got to be safe out here because, like it says, everybody's talking about COVID and taking off the mask. You can still get sick, and if you're not vaccinated, you can still get ill, and you can still end up in the hospital. There's still a lot of states out there that Hawaii is one of those states that haven't lifted this mask mandate. There's still that stuff is still in place in Hawaii. Not to mention with the inflation, the gas prices is going to shoot up relatively soon. In California, a regular gallon of gas is $4.99.
It's amazing in certain areas because I know Jersey we have refineries.
Refineries, yeah.
In Louisiana, there's refineries, but our gas prices are different. There's refineries in other parts of the nation that in Florida there's refineries also, and it's a little different. Gas prices are different; they fluctuate. It is crazy, but Hawaii, that's one place. No matter what, expect to pay double the rate everyone else
But
does.
how do they get their gas? They have to either fly it in or ship it in. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So that's just the bottom line. It's going to be expensive for that.
Yep, it is. It
You
is.
know.
It is a shame, but all right. So in closing, I just want to remind everybody, if you're interested, to go over to the webpage and you can see it. Oh, let me make sure I get it. You're welcome to go visit our website, www.thenewnorm.club, and check out archived information or information that's pertinent to elections and, of course, COVID-19 and vaccines and stuff, because we always do it. Thanks to my brother, who's always been the master administrator there. He's made sure that the Cyber Mall is packed with a lot of information, including entrepreneurs and businesses and services, and gives you some sort of direction of here, through their experience of what you could do yourself if need be. In addition to that, you also have links to these fire stations. If you'd like to connect it, go check out his
I was checking it out tonight, bro. I
internet radio station.
was loving it, man. I'm telling you.
Okay. because Adrian also curates over at both radio stations. He has one or two that's linked up. One having to do with reggae and soca and old
Right.
school Ja Rasta music, and then the other
Old
one is
school
old
R&B.
school, right? Hip hop and R&B, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're
Yeah, you got to
interested,
keep those things alive, man, because that's all part of our heritage. Those
absolutely,
are seriously part of our heritage. You spoke about
absolutely,
Black History Month. That's part of our heritage. It
absolutely,
is.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in taking that vibe and in needing that type of encouragement, go check it out. Hit that click and follow along. It'll take you on that passage, that journey that Adrian has set up for you for your enjoyment, for your eargasm, so you can keep on enjoying life the way it is. And if not, please continue on. If you'd like to leave us information-wise, you're welcome to go either to our different sites on the social media sites as you see below, but also if you're interested in contacting us other formats, you're welcome to come over to Patreon. That's probably got cobwebs on it right now, but it's all good. Or lastly, you can always contact me directly through there if you're interested in information. Either which way, we're open to have any conversation with you about topics that we've talked about before, or topics that you may need or like to have more discussion in the near future. This is the internet-based talk show that brings you into the conversation. It's not just Adrian and I all the time. It's whoever would like to have a conversation. So if you're just coming on, thank you for spending some time with us. Hopefully, we've gotten you encouraged, got you enlightened. At least you'll know some information that we've gathered along the way to help you manage this thing called life. And moving forward, just make sure you are doing the best that you possibly can to live life. Enjoy the life that you have, and make
Yeah.
sure that you can be a better part of someone else's life also. If we continue to be a blessing, it's a blessing to ourselves and a blessing to one another. Because if you look at things around, blessings is something that we need. So God bless you all.
Lots of it.
Yep. God bless you all, and we appreciate your time and space and whatever the situation comes about. Remember, we love you here. We appreciate you. Until next week, as we see transitions go on. Never know how things are, but until this time, we love you. Take care of yourself.
No
Peace.
doubt. Be blessed.